Rogers TV.
FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, January 28th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, minus 12, feeling in the minus 20s in this wind. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. It was a violent night in the Byward Market of Ottawa. It was a stabbing incident sent 4 people to hospital. Here's City News reporter Chris Curries.
Ottawa police investigating a stabbing at the Salvation Army Booth Centre. Police confirm 4 people were injured after an incident at the shelter located on George Street in the Byward Market. 1 person is in custody, a 5th, who police say is, quote, the sole person responsible. They also confirmed that the 4 victims were taken to hospital, all in stable condition. A Salvation Army spokesperson confirmed the incident took place around 9:15 p.m. Wednesday and says our team is actively assisting Ottawa Police Services with a response, and our thoughts and prayers are with everyone involved. Charges are pending. Chris Curries, City News.
Now updating a closure of the eastbound 174 earlier this morning after a rollover. The stretch of that highway between Jeanne d'Arc and Orleans Boulevard has reopened after emergency crews responded to this transport truck rollover. The transport truck containing fuel, a section of the road had to be closed starting at about 5:30 this morning. There were no injuries. City News Time at 9:01, and now the forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We'll have sun and cloud today. For tonight, partly cloudy, minus 18. It'll feel like minus 30. And tomorrow, sun and cloud, a gusty northwest wind, a minus 12. For today, already reached the high, minus 7.
And right now in both Ottawa and Smiths Falls, it's minus 12 degrees, but feeling in the low minus 20s in this wind. The province will be providing an update on COVID-19 modeling projection numbers this afternoon. The province says Dr. Adelstein Brown, the co-chair of Ontario's COVID-19 Science Advisory Table, will present the update. The new data comes from a couple of weeks after the province invoked the stay-at-home order in a bid to halt the surging case spread of COVID in Ontario. Police have charged a 43-year-old Ottawa man with 10 offenses relating to sexual assault and child abuse, in addition to previous charges that were laid back in 2019. Officers say new charges are in relation to a male victim who was under the age of 14 at the time of incidents between 2012 and 2013. Daniel Dan Walker is facing 10 charges, including possession of child pornography, making sexually explicit material available to a child, and invitation to sexual touching under the age of 16. Investigators are concerned as well there could be other victims. City News Time, 9:03. You will get a break on your electricity bill at least for the next couple of weeks. The provincial government extending the 24/7 off-peak rate initiative until February 9th now. That measure took effect on January 1st for a 28-day period. It caps the electricity rate at 8.5 cents a kilowatt hour for small business, farm, as well as residential customers. The lower rate is automatically applied to your monthly bill. Amateur investors took billions out of the pockets of hedge funds this week with a short squeeze on GameStop stock. Here's Rebecca Jarvis.
19-year-old JP Hurtado and others started buying, sending GameStop soaring.
When people see something going up, they're going to have a fear of missing out. And because more and more people keep hopping in, the price keeps going up.
JP, a student at the University of Illinois at Chicago who never traded a single stock until a year ago, bought about $8,000 of GameStop using the app Robinhood, and says by the close of Wednesday it was worth $82,000. With amateurs like him profiting, hedge fund titans have lost an estimated $5 billion.
Now, much of the professional Wall Street does remain pessimistic that GameStop's stock can hold on to the immense gains. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Good, bad, or complicated.
There's no news in Ottawa and the Valley he won't talk about.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Contagion. That was already a popular word.
in the pandemic age. Variants and mutant strains and vaccine shortages, contagion, and now newfound worries about contagion. Don't take your eyes off Wall Street. There's a Reddit rebellion underway, and that means contagion could be back. You remember 2009? Financial crisis, The Big Short, Michael Berry, Brad Pitt played him in the movie. The Reddit rebellion. Could this be the sequel? Good morning. This is the Rob Snow Show, Rogers TV, City News. We have a great show. I mean, a really great show for you. Mayor of Ottawa going to be here, Jim Watson. Council meeting yesterday. The mayor had the State of the City address. We'll go over some of the big city issues facing this community in the coming year. They are numerous and expensive, and yet at the same time, the city seems to have some grand plans that seem to defy the current state of the city's finances. So that is coming up on our show. Always enjoy having the mayor on the Rob Snow Show. We're going to talk about a lot of local issues and decision-making this morning. Randall Denley, longtime Ottawa Citizen, City Hall columnist. He is now a best-selling author. He writes for Post Media, covers the Ford government and Ottawa City issues for Post Media. His recent column on Ottawa about green belts and gold belts and the urban boundary. And, do urban boundaries really matter anymore? In the pandemic working world, look, people don't have to live downtown in a condo tower because it's close to work now. They can work from anywhere. And in fact, StatsCan recently had some data out that showed people are getting out of the city. So the idea that there's this urban boundary that will somehow limit growth, stop people from moving out of the core, it's just detached from reality. Well, that's one of the issues we'll also get into this morning. We'll have a panel discussion with former city councillor Maria McRae and Walter Robinson as well on the show this morning. He's a former chief of staff to Mayor O'Brien, and of course, Walter, longtime local political commentator. My goodness, have you been watching what's going on in the stock market? It's all anybody is talking about. I mean, it's crazy. It's wild. It's nuts. It's frightening. It's exhilarating. Some people think it's revolutionary. Yeah. The underclass sticking it to Wall Street. And the billionaires. We have an expert coming up on the program this morning. Hans Albrecht from Horizons ETF. This is what's going on. You have some stocks that the big hedge funds, they have placed bets in the stock market that these stocks are going to go down. And one of them, the one that's in the news recently, has been GameStop. Now, GameStop is a video game store. It's an unprofitable chain of video game stores. And it's not a profitable business because it's basically Blockbuster video. Nobody goes to video game stores to buy video games anymore. It's all done in the cloud. So these hedge funds have bet, hey, the shares in GameStop are going to go down, and now they're getting clobbered because all of these small-time day traders, they're organizing in the millions on platforms like Reddit, and they're driving the stock price way up in stocks like GameStop. So some of these hedge funds, and don't you feel sorry when the hedge funds go bust, they've been blown to smithereens. I'm telling you, folks, it's a huge story. Yesterday's stock was GameStop. Today, this morning, it's American Airlines. Like, who wouldn't invest in American Airlines right now? I'm sure they're doing a boom in business. They're doing the same thing to American Airlines. It's up more than 30% this morning. For no reason at all. In the last week, they did it to BlackBerry, AMC, the movie theater chain. These Reddit traders, they have the chat rooms. They find a stock, big short position, and they bid the price way up, and they're kind of breaking the bank. But that could create a big problem for the financial system because of contagion, right? This was the big word during the 2009 financial crisis. counterparty risk, derivatives, financial weapons of mass destruction, Warren Buffett called them. You know, this fund goes down, and then that fund goes down, and that fund goes down, and that bank goes down, and that bank goes down, and next thing you know, everybody's got to be bailed out. Right? Follow that story. It is incredible. We're going to talk about the vaccine rollout again this morning. Such as it is. The vaccine shortage, the vaccine stoppage, vaccine protectionism. Our city staff admitted this week, we have no idea when Ottawa's next shipment of the Pfizer vaccine is going to arrive. And that's not an Ottawa situation. That is a scenario that's playing out all across the country. In every big city and in every small town, where you have dedicated municipal staff and they're trying to do the best they can with what they have to work with, and they're trying to come up with dosing schedules and get facilities lined up, staff ready to go. And now, because of what's going on with the Pfizer delay, it's all kind of in a state of suspended animation, isn't it? We'll examine the latest data, compare Canada to its peer countries. How are we doing in this country today? Compared to our peer countries, has it improved? Not really. Why aren't we doing better? Isn't that a good question? And I would encourage you to share your opinion on that very important topic again this morning. See, that's why we do the Talk Back Hour. We do it every morning here on the Rob Snow Show. Between 10 and 11 o'clock, we take your calls. We listen to your opinions. It's the hottest radio in town. So give us a call at 750-1310 after the 10 o'clock news on vaccines. 750-1310, 613-750-1310. New email address is therobsnowshow@ottawa.citynews.ca. And I think for my friends on the right side of things, we should talk about the Conservative Party and its new leader, Erin O'Toole. My friends on the right side of things, what's wrong with the Conservative Party these days? Angus Reid Institute comes out with a poll, and it shows that despite all the many problems that the Trudeau government has faced, from vaccines to canceled pipelines to a governor general who's just not a nice person, the Conservatives have yet to see any kind of political benefit to the Liberal troubles. The Conservatives are stuck at 30% in the polls. That's the base. The Liberals, meantime, according to Angus Reid, it's one poll, but nevertheless, the Liberals have opened up their widest lead in 2 years. They're up by 5 points. And in terms of, do people like Erin O'Toole or do they not like Erin O'Toole, it seems, according to the Angus Reid numbers, that the more Canadians get to know Erin O'Toole, the less they like Erin O'Toole. Why is that? What's wrong with the Conservatives? No, it's not Groundhog Day yet. It's the Rob Snow Show on City News.
The Rob Snow Show, brought to you by Myers Automotive Group.
At Toyota, safety isn't.
I always knew I was going to own my own business, and I've always wanted to have a store. And I sort of figured when the right concept came together at the right time, I would move forward with that plan. And so through doing some environmental initiatives in the restaurant group that I was with prior to opening this store, it just triggered my path towards being more environmentally conscientious and wanting to make more of a difference, and hopefully encouraging, inspiring other people to want to do the same, at which point the idea for All Eco was born. I have some really fun products. I have a really wide spectrum of products. So the things we look for in terms of qualifying products are sustainably made, upcycled, recycled, zero waste, all natural, no harmful chemicals to like the environment or to our bodies. We have like fun stuff, so like really clean burning candles, lots of really natural body care and skin care. I put a real emphasis on Canadian products. I really try to support up and comers, and I always source Canada first. The refill bar is really important to me. It's really huge. I think that's been exciting as well, because I thought it was going to be a real process in convincing people that this is a better way to go. And actually it was just like right away there was a built-in affinity towards doing refill, which has been great. We closed, I think, probably we were closed down by before the second week of March. Just didn't feel we could comfortably or confidently stay open, even though I do sell essential products, like in terms of the cleaning. But we just didn't feel we could make a safe space for ourselves or our customers at that time, and especially with the information we had at the time. So we did close our doors, at which point I did not have a website, because that was I hadn't even scheduled myself to have a website at that point. So that was sort of like full speed moving towards that and trying to drive the business, at the same time still get myself on the map because I was so new. So during that time, as we were building the website, we were still doing a lot of video shopping and private shopping, online shopping, like online phone, text. Any way I could do business, I was doing it. And there was really a nice show of support for my business during that time, which was really, really encouraging. And now, we are fully set up online too.
Changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Saying good morning to Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson. Good morning, Mayor Watson.
Good morning. How are you, Rob?
I'm good. How are you?
I just sent Maria McRae a note saying I'm your warm-up act.
Yeah, you're like the pregame show,
That's right?
Yeah. No, I thank you so much.
The big ratings are next hour.
And Walter Robinson as well. So thank you so much for your time this morning. It's so greatly appreciated. What would you say were the key messages that you wanted to drive home yesterday in your State of the City address?
Well, our theme was resilience and determination, really driven around the work that we've been doing with the community and our partners to battle COVID-19. That's, as you can imagine, all-consuming at City Hall. That's our number one priority, is to get the vaccination process up and running when we get our supply, to continue to work with the province to see how we can open schools sooner than later, and to help rebuild the economy. Even though our unemployment rate is the best of the top 6 cities in Canada, it's still too high, and we want to get it back to the level we were at prior to COVID, when we were firing on all cylinders and the economy was really booming. And so, our preoccupation continues with those individuals who are the most vulnerable, and we've now, we're on target, I think, to vaccinate about 11 of the 28 long-term care homes by this weekend, and then we anticipate more supply of vaccine next week, and we'll be able to finish all of the long-term care homes by, I believe, about the 11th or 12th of February.
But how frustrating is it right now on the vaccine front, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I think
the uncertainty there.
Yeah, I think it's very frustrating. People want to get needles in their arms as quickly as possible. But most people are reasonable in this city, Rob. They understand that the first priority has to be long-term care homes. Those are where we've seen approximately 70% of the deaths, unfortunately. And so we need to get those individuals. I know yesterday, for instance, we went back for the second dose to Pearly Rideau Veterans Home, and I think close to 100 residents had their second booster shot, which is great. And I just want to give a big shout out to the Ottawa Hospital, Ottawa Public Health, and our paramedics who've been doing a lot of these injections in different parts of the city. And if I could just boast about our team for a moment, the Premier and General Hillier last week in one of their press conferences gave the city and our team, Team Ottawa, I call it, 3 shout-outs for really setting the gold standard in terms of how to get organized with our vaccine task force, and the Prime Minister did the same, I think, a day or two later. So you don't do these things for kudos, but I just wanted to pass along to our dedicated staff who are working long hours. They're getting the job done. We just need, of course, more vaccine, and we anticipate getting more to be able to finish our long-term care homes next week, and then start, obviously, on high-risk retirement homes where there have been a number of deaths as well, unfortunately.
Okay. Clint Crabtree is the president of ATU Local 279, the OC Transpo Union. OC Transpo and Paratranspo operators, he says that they interact with members of the public every day and they should be given priority in the queue for the COVID-19 vaccine. What do you think about that position?
I think it's a sensible and reasonable position because, as you know, our bus drivers and train operators do come in contact literally with hundreds and hundreds of citizens every single day, and they are frontline workers just as people working in grocery stores and pharmacies are. So I think he has a very legitimate case. These decisions are made by ethics groups and experts and medical professionals and so on, but the reality is that they have as much contact as other first responders, and I think. But
is it a municipal decision? Does the authority lie on priority with the municipality or the province?
We have some input, but at the end of the day, the layout that we presented our technical briefing on Monday, it's very much driven by provincial guidelines.
Okay. The urban boundary decision befuddles many people, not necessarily because of the decision to allot 445 hectares to the Algonquins of Ontario and its development partner, Taggart, but because this seems to be decision-making on the fly. When it comes to the urban boundary, I mean, this is something that your city staff studied exhaustively, was debated thoroughly at the committee. There was a great deal of public consultation, and then very much out of nowhere at a city council meeting, this decision is made. Even though your own city staff didn't know how to answer questions about it. How can you defend such a process, Mr. Mayor?
Well, it was actually not at council, but the Planning and Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee where the motions are brought forward, and it will go to council, as you pointed out, in a couple of weeks. Staff make recommendations, but ultimately members of council, in this case the members of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee and the Planning Committee, are able to bring forward motions. And with respect to the land in question near Carlsbad, with the Algonquins, who have teamed up with a well-known developer in the city of Ottawa, I think this is an opportunity for us to put action to words. We're often very good as politicians doing the Algonquin land claim or recognition of their land and unsurrendered, unceded land. And yet nothing much happens after those words are spoken. This is the first time in the history of the city of Ottawa we have a thorough and substantive proposal by a First Nations group on land that they bought. This was not land that was given to them. And they've partnered with a credible firm, and they want to come and enjoy some of the economic activity that so many others benefit from in our city. And so, we've made other decisions. For instance, my colleague Caroline Meehan brought forward a recommendation to ensure that the lands around Beausville can be developed into a transit-oriented development, because if we didn't allow that, there'd be a train that would go to Beausville in the middle, basically, of a field. So we're trying to correct some of the errors of the past, and I think those are two good examples where members of council took the initiative and brought forward alternative plans, and we'll debate those at City Council.
Okay. Given the current state of the city's finances, Mayor Watson, how can the city of Ottawa really afford $129 million to revitalize the Byward market?
I think the question is, can we afford not to do something to revitalize the market. You know, the market has had some challenges, and they've been amplified as a result of COVID. You know, I was down there a couple of times over the months of July and August, which is usually great produce season for local farmers, and there may be 3 or 4 stands. So we have to really treat that as a gem in our city assets. It's the longest-serving, oldest continuous farmers market in North America, and it's celebrating its 200th anniversary, Rob, in 2027. And one of the things that I announced in the State of the City address is we want to capture the same excitement and tourism opportunities that we did in 2017 with the 150th anniversary of Confederation, and take that same spirit and put it into revitalizing the market so that we culminate in 2027 with hopefully La Machine coming back. You recall that giant...
Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah, it was
it was
super
phenomenal.
Cool. Yeah, and very cool. Yeah.
It was, you know, when I go into, not now because of COVID, but when I go to speak to students, you know, if they're older, like grade 8 and 9, they always ask me, is that going to come back, the big dragon and the big spider? And it was phenomenal. So, you know, whatever we can do, we were going to have to rely on the private sector to invest some of those dollars. The city, we'd like to get the province and the federal government, and we think there's a golden opportunity to take that important gem and polish it up and make it a real people destination where people feel, you know, safe and secure. And there's a great selection of farmers. We started a farmer first policy. If you're new to farming, you've never been to the market, we'll give you free rent in your stall to attract them to come and open up shop this summer.
Okay. Radio Canada is reporting this morning that Maxime Pedneau-Jobin will not seek re-election as the mayor of Gatineau. What was he like to work with? How would you describe your working relationship with the mayor of Gatineau, sir?
Very, very positive. You know, Maxime and I have worked on a number of issues together with the Big City Mayor's Caucus. He's a real gentleman, very, very thoughtful. We worked together on joint surveys for federal election candidates. We fought both to get on the board of the NCC, which we were successful on. Ottawa 27 was really an Ottawa and a Gatineau 2017. You know, they did the picnic on the bridge, that amazing sculpted floral arrangements in Jacques Cartier Park, and, you know, a number of other interesting initiatives. He's very supportive, for instance, of us rehabilitating the Prince of Wales Bridge, which goes into Gatineau. So he's been a great friend and as I said, a great partner. It's the closest relationship I think we've ever had from mayor to mayor, because you know, we really wanted that relationship to work, because as you know, Rob, we may be separated by the river, but we are one economic region, and you know, what happens in Gatineau has a ripple effect here in Ottawa and vice versa.
I heard a really juicy rumor. I got to ask you about it. As you know, the search is on for a new governor general, and somebody told me maybe Jim Watson might be interested. Are you interested in something like that? Would you turn down the job of Governor General of Canada?
No, I wouldn't, but I think on a very long list, I'm very at the bottom of that list. There are some, I'm sure, other well-deserving Canadians that could do a much better job than I could. So, well, I'm flattered that one or two people have floated that. I don't think it's within the realm of reality or possibility.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning. Yeah.
All right.
Bye-bye. Okay. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson. It's 9:28. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Experience Winterlude across Canada. Watch the virtual show exploring Canada's winter traditions. Meet the carvers of Winterlude's first national ice carving competition. Vote online for your favorite sculpture. Celebrate Canada's artistic diversity with Fozia, Ariane Moffat, William Prince, Tracy Trash, Cornet, Ria May, and the incredible Eladj Balde. Join us February 5th at 7 p.m. This is Winterlude.
on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, January 28th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, minus 12 degrees. It feels like minus 20 or so. Here's what's making news this hour. Mayor Jim Watson says it is sensible to inoculate people like bus drivers among the first once the healthcare and long-term care sectors are done. Watson tells the Rob Snow Show the city does have input on who gets the shot next, but the province is the one that does release the guidelines that everyone has to follow. An Ottawa man is facing 10 charges in addition to ones he's already facing. This is Dan Walker, who is facing 10 additional charges. These relate to a male victim under the age of 14 at the time who alleged incidents between 2012 and 2013. Investigators are also concerned there could be other victims. 2 weeks since the stay-at-home orders issued in the province. So how goes the fight against COVID-19 in Ontario? We're getting an update on COVID modeling numbers from the province, and that is due to be released early this afternoon. Nissan is recalling more than 354,000 Pathfinders SUVs from the 2013 through 2015 model years. Brake lights apparently can stay on all the time. 2013 and 14 models were already the subject of a recall 5 years ago. The automaker says the latest recall has a new repair and adds the 2015 model year. City News Time, 9:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Continuing our discussion on local affairs, we have former City Councillor Maria McRae. Good morning, Maria.
Good morning, Rob.
How are you?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much. And Walter Robinson is back with us. He's a former chief of staff to Ottawa Mayor Larry O'Brien, but he's wore a lot of hats in his days. Long-time political commentator. Good morning. Good morning, Walter.
And good morning to you, Rob, and pleasure to be on with my favorite counselor and biggest NFL fan, Maria McRae.
Okay, if we have a few minutes left at the end of this panel discussion, we'll get Maria's over/under on the Super Bowl. Okay,
Super Bowl for sure.
All right, okay.
Rob, can we acknowledge also some of the great fundraising work Walter does? I see he's up to it again, and unbelievable how much he's given back to our city.
Walter, what are you up to?
I'm trying to raise $100,000 by the end of June for the Brain Tumor Foundation of Canada. This is the 25th year of the passing of my father to a brain tumor, the same thing that took Senator Edward Kennedy, John McCain, and Canadian icon Gord Downie.
Oh.
We need to do better in research and treatment in this area, so it's a virtual walk at the end of June, and I'm going to raise over $100,000.
How do people contribute to that, Walter?
They can find me on my Twitter handle, @Walter Robinson, or go to braintumorwalk.ca, and you can support teams. You can search my name, donate, and encouraging lots of people lost family members to brain tumors. They can sign up and do it themselves. And one other thing here, Rob, brain tumors are the number one cause of childhood cancer death. So they just don't affect adults and old people. They affect children too.
Great cause, and good on you for raising awareness about that. Well, we just had Mayor Watson on our program. A lot of material there to work with, but I'll ask the both of you, starting with you, Maria. The new year is underway. There was the State of the City address yesterday, new City Council meeting, first City Council meeting of the year. We're 10 months into the pandemic. What do you see for 2021 as the major challenges for this City Council at this point in time?
Well, certainly economic recovery post-pandemic. And again, I think that's going to go on for more than 1 year. We'll start seeing some of the immediate impacts when they start revitalizing with new construction through programs that I think will come down from the upper levels of government. That's going to help. Also, they're going to have meetings with local businesses to figure out what the priorities need to be. But certainly this needs to be looked at on a long-term basis. And tying into that, obviously, is going to be how the budget is spent and what the impact of work from home is going to be on transit, whether it's current transit in terms of how the revenue's coming in or the build-out. But certainly I want to acknowledge one thing the mayor did say yesterday, that had to do with some of the behind-the-scene things that staff have done with local residents. I think the number was 7,000 visits of different kinds of things, whether it's dropping off a food basket to people in need and that sort of thing. And that's the kind of stuff you don't hear about, but you sometimes know about. And very positive to hear that many people had been impacted in such a good way.
What do you see as some of the major challenges for this city council right now, Walter?
I agree with Maria's assessment, especially the long-term economic and revenue challenges. I think the first challenge is obviously the budget, the loss of fare box revenues of OC Transpo. This is a challenge faced by cities across the planet. I think the bigger challenge is something that is mostly out of their hands, but they're going to wear it. And that's the local vaccination campaign, which comes from federal supply to Public Health Ontario, and then Public Health trying to work here locally, and Dr. X's and Tony DeMonte doing things. But I just want to go here. What I think they're going to feel is the Economist Intelligence Unit has put out a report yesterday that says Canada won't finish its mass vaccination campaign until Q2 2022. Work with me for a second.
2022.
2022.
Okay.
And it's real, and it's scary, and it needs to be talked about, because the Prime Minister says we're going to get 6 doses by the end of this 6 million doses by the end of this quarter. That's 3 million arms. We still need to do 1 million doses a week in Canada from April 1 to November 1st, including 400K a week in Ontario, if we're going to finish this campaign before the end of 2021. The Ontario plan is nowhere near that. And if Ontario fails, Canada fails. Ottawa's going to wear that, because there's going to be a lot of people saying, it's now September. I was waiting for my shot. I'm 55, 6 years of age. I'm not getting a shot. This is going to be a real communications plan between the province and the city. I think that's their biggest challenge in terms of anger and frustration and worry of almost 1 million people in this city.
Do you think, I guess, and I didn't ask the mayor about this because our time was tight, but, and it's not just an Ottawa thing, but I do have to wonder, do you think the city of Ottawa is counting too much on upper levels of government for funding? When we look around, for example, we see it's basically status quo at OC Transpo. We have full-scale operations at OC Transpo, even though empty buses are driving around the city. Empty trains, too, for that matter. A plan to revitalize the Byward Market that I want to talk about a little bit later. But, now, really, $129 million for the Byward Market? What do you think? Is this city relying too much on promises made by the federal government and the provincial government? What do you think, Maria?
I'm not sure.
Sure.
It's relying any more now than cities have relied on in the past. I think that these are broad discussions that need to take place, obviously at budget time, but throughout the calendar year. And quite frankly, with the market plan, we've been talking about revitalizing that market for a long time. I think it's the 200th anniversary is coming up.
Yeah, 2027, yeah.
Well, and we know that market needs to change if it's going to be stable. And one thing that people complain about all the time is the lack of diversity of shops and things like that, or they don't like going to the stalls. Whatever the reason is, they don't go down there. So in terms of the number, it's a big price tag, obviously, but we'll see that roll out gradually over time. And I think that most Ottawans, if you talk to them, they don't want to see that market fold up and become a development of a bunch of more high-rises in the area. So it's up to us to give the feedback to the community, to council from the community about what we want that to look like.
I don't know. I don't know, Maria. I think as people in Canada, Orleans, Cumberland, Hunt Club, whatever. Gosh, they might go to the Byward Market once every 3 years or something. Maybe they go once a year to buy a Christmas tree or something. Other than that, they never go to the Byward Market.
But you can say the same for people that don't go elsewhere in the city. The question is, do we want to sustain...
But where else is getting $130 million, though? That's the thing.
But lots of places get a lot of money that we don't hear about because it's not sexy to talk about. The market's a sexy topic because it's one big chunk of money in one lump sum, or it seems that way. But if you ask people 10 years from now, do you think the city should have done more to protect the market if something happens? They're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, why did we let that happen? You constantly hear about people who are upset when something gets ripped down that they want to keep.
Okay. What do you think, Walter?
On the first question...
Too reliant on upper levels of government.
Yes, because, and I disagree with Maria, we don't need money for infrastructure to build back better. There's going to be lots of money for shovel-ready projects. There's not enough people to do them because there's pent-up demand of construction that has stopped already. What we need, and then we're going to build better roads and better infrastructure for people who may not be coming back to their offices, may not be ever going back to work, or they're doing the 3-2-2 schedule. I'm working from home for 3 days a week. I'm into the office for 2. I'm off for 2. And who knows what that 7 days looks like? Is it Thursday to Wednesday? There's a whole different restructuring of work coming in this space. But I think we are too reliant because the federal government, whoever it is after the next election, I think that'll be this spring, is going to have to bring in, as we've chatted before, successive budgets of austerity, the same thing at the provincial level. So I think we have some challenges there. On the market, I would agree with Maria, like it's a crown jewel, and it is a huge tourist draw. And revitalizing it, we need to do some things. I know Bill Carroll has been taking on another channel. Sorry to speak about another network. My apologies. You have a much better show. But the stab word market, and we need to do things there. Although I would agree with your point, Rob. Wow. I can put $40 million to revitalizing Saint Joseph Boulevard 5 minutes away from me going to Orleans. I can see there's other people in Hintonburg and Westboro that still have some streets they want to do. The byward market redevelopment strategy must be in the context of a greater urban strategy of shop local, eat local, and what business will look like. Because right now, our future, if we don't have that coming out of this pandemic, looks like Windsor. And if you've been to Windsor, every second store in the downtown core is boarded up. It is not pretty.
Okay. Just on the future of work, we should really be paying attention to Treasury Board at the federal level and what we're hearing now about, the future of the downtown office towers of Ottawa and Gatineau, because there are questions about public servants going back to work, not just because of remote work and the popularity or feasibility of remote work, but because of net zero climate goals. Office buildings are a major source of greenhouse gases, and the Trudeau government now thinks that it may be time to transition away from having thousands of public servants in big office towers just because of the environmental impact.
Well, just on that, Rob, I had an opportunity. I had to go across the bridge. I was driving. I did not get out of my car last week. I went by Place du Portage. There are floors upon floors that are boarded up with, it looks like, construction paper, brown construction paper. It's a shell of what it once was. L'Esplanade Laurier should be ripped down. And then even some of the other buildings, as you talk about, they're half empty or 3/4 empty. And there's a microeconomy down there, that little office building economy that we don't have anymore. Yeah. So that's a real issue. And the federal government was already moving to, they still have land out across from Saint Laurent. In my neck of the woods, they've built an employment kind of work hub center that I think will be very popular for people when we do get back to some sort of semblance later this year, next year, where people can go there and do telework from Place d'Orleans, the mall, as opposed to going downtown. That's already established footprint, not as big greenhouse gas, and those malls are going to need tenants and stuff. So I think we're going to see a very different distributed federal workforce. And the buildings downtown, I think we get to the other things around urban plan that you want to get to after the break, around redesignating for mixed-use development and that 15-minute community or 20-minute city. I think there's a real issue, and in the next decade, our downtown, I think, will be more vibrant, but it won't be office buildings. It'll be people in those buildings that'll be reconverted.
Did you want to jump in there, Maria, or we can move on? It's up to you.
I wanted to back up a little bit about infrastructure and add to the point that regardless if people are working, we're still going to need to have our bridges and roads repaired. If there are community centers that people want to use and there's an opportunity to have a shovel-in-the-ground project ready and use some infrastructure money to move those projects forward, they're good things. And yes, there may be opportunities where there are shortages of work, but that's not new to Ottawa. We've been dealing with shortages of workers. We've been dealing with shortages of workers for a very long time in the construction industry. And you look at the different waves, starting back as far as, let's say, the late 90s, when the boom started happening in high tech. So it's up to the city to have those projects ready to go. And again, input from the community. So if there's a choice between repairing, let's say, Hunt Club Road, dealing with potholes again, or putting in an expansion to a community center, obviously the roads need to be prioritized and the sidewalks and the cycling paths and whatnot. But at the end of the day, we know that when you start building more, that is going to help sustain the economy. Everything's going to flow, and you look at the millions of people across the country that are employed indirectly through construction, that's going to keep the country going as well.
Okay, we'll be right back. Talking city affairs with our municipal panelists today, Maria McRae and Walter Robinson, on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
The Rob Snow Show, brought to you.
Well, we're celebrating our 43rd year. It's still family operated. We're in our second generation. We, pre-COVID, we're at about 1,000 employees. We have 20 stores from coast to coast in Canada. We do our own manufacturing. Right here in Ottawa, we have about 160 people that support Canadian-made manufacturing in addition to our retail stores. Taking you back to mid-March and the impact of the pandemic on Lee Valley. Lee Valley was actually in a tough spot. We had just launched our website a few months prior to that, and we were going through, a fairly typical deployment dive where your customers retract as they adjust to the website. And then under stress already, this pandemic hit. And in the early days, it was pretty critical. It hit us really hard. Stores were closed. We weren't sure what to do, so we had to go right into survival mode. As a result, we had to take our workforce almost back to half of where we were at because the stores were closed, and with 20 stores, that's a big retail workforce. But what we were able to do pretty quickly, with a little luck, being essential, selling tools and hardware, we were able to adjust our business model, with respect to the stores and our fulfillment operation. That new website that we were under stress worked out well for us because as the world was under house arrest, people were looking to online, and the conversion to our online sales in some cases almost doubled. And we saw tremendous interest in things to do at home. Where we were lucky once again is, and fortunate, is that our product offering. Work at home tools, craft, hobbies, backyard, container gardening, you name it, what we sold was really appealing to people. With respect to our stores, Lee Valley, a rare unknown fact was that we were one of the pioneers of curbside pickup. We've been doing it for 25 years. Pretty much dove right into the application to help with the contactless shopping right away. We took the application, and it's not like a Apple application where you have to download it to your phone and clutter up your phone. This is literally resides right on our website. So you walk into our store with your phone, you pull up our website, and there's a little scan icon. You just tap that, select your store, off you go. You go through the showroom, you scan product, you can read more about it, you can check the on hand, you can add it to your cart, continue to shop, and when you're ready, you just submit it to the counter. We'll go pick it for you. We'll call out your name, we'll check you out, send you on your way. You haven't touched anything. It's completely safe, and it's using a device you're comfortable with and a website that you're familiar with. Amazingly, 9 out of 10 people that used it loved it and want to use it again.
Of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
We're back with Walter Robinson and Maria McRae. We're talking some big city issues like the urban boundary. Now, this is something that has been studied and debated and consulted and analyzed, and there's been lots of public feedback on it, and very controversial. The urban boundary, how much quote unquote sprawl should be allowed to accommodate future growth. And then at the committee level, more or less out of nowhere, councillors vote to allot 445 hectares to the Algonquins of Ontario and the partner Taggart, meaning a new subdivision is now in the works for an area near Carlsbad Springs that could eventually see a population of about 45,000. But the allegation is it came out of nowhere. It seems to be done on the fly. It's not a very well-serviced area. What's your reaction to this, Maria McRae, how this decision was made.
Well, I say hogwash to the notion that came out of nowhere.
Came out of nowhere.
We've been hearing about this subdivision for quite some time now. And I think that when people start participating in democracy, so for example, if they go back and they get their notice to hear about the plan changing and start sending comments and they're more engaged, I think that a lot of people don't realize how important this issue is. The ones that are engaged, of course they do, and all of a sudden something like this comes up and it's a big headline grabber. But I love the notion of reconciliation. I think that that's actually a really positive step for the city to go in. And when you look at what they want to do in terms of what the footprint looks like and trying to develop something that's going to be greener development, and you look at the principles involved, Janet Stavinga and Julie Taggart are two people that will do an excellent job. And so I look at that from a bigger picture. Does Taggart have the means and ability to develop this appropriately? And yes, I think it's a good thing for the city. I understand the rationale.
Well, what about the process, though, Marie?
But it's been on the books for a long time.
But it's not recommended by the staff. The staff look at it and they don't recommend it, and yet it's approved.
But, Rob, with respect to that opinion, staff may not always have the final word on things. That's up to the elected officials. They're the ones that own it. They're the ones whose names are on the ballot. And if the planning committee decided that was a priority for the city, that is democracy in action.
Sure.
And there's many times the residents come out and say, oh my gosh, staff made a recommendation we don't like, go up against it. So this time, they got it right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, and I don't want people to get me wrong. It's, it has nothing to do that it's Algonquins of Ontario or what have you. I think the whole issue of the urban boundaries are blown way out of proportion anyway. I just want to be clear on that. For me, it's just the process is peculiar to me. But Walter, what do you think about how this decision came to be?
Well, I'm going to agree with Maria that at the end of the day, it's Maria and her colleagues, when she was there, the colleagues now, who will wear the decision. Staff recommends, council decides. That's our government. Around this, though, I also think that people, and I'm a big fan of intensification and smart growth. My views have changed quite substantially as I've traveled the world and seen what people have done in those cities. But there are times when greenfield development is actually cheaper than intensification. And you need to grow out to grow up, to get those development charges, to do the stuff you want. Because if you just think full intensification, and we're going to put a 20-story building here and a 15-story there, you get communities that are angered. And what you also do, as we've seen in Bank Street, we've seen on Elgin, we've seen across the main trunk line across the west of Ottawa, which moves down into Ropac, and that's the other stuff that people need to understand, that 50% of what councillors did make decisions on happens underneath the pavement. It's not a park bench, it's not a field. And sometimes, if you do that too much intensification, you're starting to rip up sewers again for more capacity. You're destroying traditional main streets and taking their livelihood. So if you're going to grow up, you have to grow out. I will say the one thing that I have liked, I found comedic about this process, we've got the green belt. Now we've got the gold belt. I'm waiting I want to win the WWE Combined Universal Championship belt. That's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah, you're the Intercontinental, Walter. Okay.
They retired that one, I think, didn't they?
No, but on that point, though, Walter, I mean, this was part of the Grieber plan, having the green belt, right? And Randall Denley's column was about this earlier in the week in the Ottawa Citizen, about the idea that we're going to have a gold belt. Did the green belt really achieve its goals? What do you think? I mean, you're a suburban guy, so
I think it did.
I mean, you've got to drive through the green belt to get home. So
let's remember that when you think about 50-year plans, it takes vision to think about 50-year plans. Just in Toronto, the 407 corridor was designated 50 years before the highway was built in the 90s. It did achieve protecting aquifers, protecting watersheds, and that's the other stuff you got to think about when you think about the Jock River and the Ottawa River, which way things do, and development has to work with that. And you have communities that grow up. What didn't happen and what still needs to happen and is slowly happening is Orleans, Riverside South, more so in Nepean and Canada. You build self-contained communities, and we're getting there. I hardly ever cross Bank Street, and when I do cross Bank Street, the pillars shake in different buildings going west. So, but you need more of that kind of local communities for that to work. And if you can build, for example, coming back to your first question, a self-contained 45,000-person community with a transit node and everything you need there, That's a good thing, and those development charges and other things can fund that and also help us growing inside the core, coming back to the office building discussion we had before the break.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, River Ward, when you were representing River Ward, are parts of River Ward, would you say there's a 15-minute community vibe to River Ward, Maria?
Yeah, it all depends on what part of the ward you live in, Rob, to be fair.
Right.
It's so huge. It straddles the river, the Rideau River.
Yeah.
But I think to go back on one of Walter's points has to do with intensification, and he makes a point about what is it that is going to happen when you start talking intensification. So you look at that controversy a couple of weeks ago. I think it was Alan Hubley was voting against something in Canada that the residents didn't like. It was an apartment building that was going to show
12 unit apartment building, 3 stories.
Smack dab in the middle of a huge urban area. And one of the reporters said to him, well, you voted in favor of things happening in other wards. How come you're against it in your ward? Well, he's sticking up for his residents, was his argument. Well, if we build a city like that, where every time someone wants to plop down something new in a piece of land that would hold more, and the debate just keeps swirling, maybe it's time to have a relook at what those policies look like, because it's going to be like that in every ward. So a council is going to say, well, the residents don't like it, let's not do it. So in terms of this 45,000 unit development, we know there's huge pressure right now in Ottawa in terms of people wanting to buy more single family homes, townhomes, apartments, condos. People can age in place out there. So I think that looking at its proximity to all the amenities in terms of getting on the 417, being able to go east to Montreal if they want to go elsewhere, that also is important. So it keeps people from hopping downtown or cutting through the city to get other places as well.
All right, Maria. Hold on. We only have a minute left. Maria, Kansas City or Tampa Bay?
Tom Brady all the way. Let's go.
Okay. All right. What do you think?
I agree.
You agree, really? Okay. You're betting against Mahomes. Against Mahomes. Okay.
Well, it's aging Yoda versus baby Yoda. That's what this Super Bowl is.
Exactly. Let's go, aging Yoda.
All right. Okay. Look.
Passer, do not pass.
Maria, you're famous for your social media food posts. What do you do for halftime for the Super Bowl?
We used to have a massive party at the house, and the centerpiece was always the touchdown chili. That bad boy the night before, but we're going to do a minor version for 2 this time, and hopefully, Rob, we'll add that to the agenda when we meet in the parking lot one day with the pizzas. We'll bring some chili out too.
Okay. Thanks to the both of you. You're always so much fun to have on the show. Thank you again.
Thanks, Rob. All the best, Walter, with your fundraising. Good job.
Yeah, great job, Walter. Bye-bye. Walter Robinson, Maria McRae talking city issues with me. It's your turn now, 750-1310. Talk back hour right after the news on City News.
City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smith Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, January 28th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, minus 12, but it feels like minus 21 in the wind. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The province has been under a stay-at-home order for a couple of weeks now, and the daily COVID-19 case numbers are trending in the right direction. So is this a sign of better things to come? Kevin Meisner now is at Queen's Park, where the new COVID-19 modeling numbers are going to be released a little bit later this afternoon.
It is expected today's update on COVID-19 modeling for Ontario. The projections for case counts will be a little bit more optimistic than the last update. At that time, the province warned rising daily cases, topping upwards of 4,000 infections per day, threatened to overwhelm the healthcare system. Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. David Williams, says he would only consider easing restrictions if Ontario can get below 1,000 new cases per day. I'm Kevin Meisner.
City News Time, 10:02. Jim Watson says it is sensible to inoculate people like bus drivers among the first once healthcare and long-term care sectors are done. The Ottawa mayor tells the Rob Snow Show while the city does have input on that list, who gets a shot when, the province will be the ones making the final decision. On a completely different subject, when asked about whether he would accept the role of Governor General if asked, Watson said yes, but on a very, very long list, he would be at the very bottom, with several excellent candidates above him. A World Health Organization team has emerged from quarantine in the Chinese city of Wuhan. They will start their field work now. This is a fact-finding mission on the origins of this virus that caused the COVID-19 pandemic. They were required to complete a 14-day quarantine once they arrived in China. The mission has become politically charged, though. China wants to avoid blame for alleged missteps in its early response to the outbreak. A major question is where the Chinese side will allow the researchers to go and exactly who they will be allowed to speak with. City News Time, 10:03, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We'll have sun and cloud today. For tonight, partly cloudy, minus 18. It'll feel like minus 30. And tomorrow, sun and cloud, a gusty northwest wind of minus 12. For today, already reached the high, minus 7.
And right now in Smith Falls and in Ottawa, minus 12. It does feel like minus 21 in the wind. Police have charged a 43-year-old Ottawa man with 10 offenses relating to sex assault and child abuse, in addition to some previous charges that were laid in 2019. Officers say the new charges are in relation to a male victim who was under the age of 14 at the time of these incidents that were between 2012 and 2013. Danielle Dan Walker is facing 10 charges, including possession of child pornography, making sexually explicit material available to a child, an invitation to sexual touching for a person under the age of 16. Investigators are concerned there could be more victims, and anyone with any information is asked to contact Ottawa Police or call Crime Stoppers. Well, you'll get a break on your electricity bill for at least an extra couple of weeks. The provincial government extending the 24/7 off-peak rate initiative until February 9th now. This measure took effect on January 1st for a 28-day period. It caps the electricity rate at 8.5 cents a kilowatt hour for small business, farms, and for residential customers. The lower rate is automatically applied to your monthly bill. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Here we go. Favorite hour of the day, Talkback Hour, 750-1310. 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Why isn't Canada doing better with the vaccination rollout? Why isn't Canada doing as well as, say, the United Kingdom or the United States? Do you have any thoughts on that? I'd love to hear them. What's wrong with the Conservatives? I'd love to get into that as well this morning with my friends on the right side of things. Your party's stuck at 30% in the polls, ladies and gentlemen. 30% of the polls is basically the most loyal base that you have in the country. 30%. It's nowhere near where the party would ever need to be if it ever hopes to govern. And that's where it stands, according to Angus Reid anyway. And Aaron O'Toole, the leader of the party, according to this one poll, I found it surprising, the favorability rankings. Do you have a favorable opinion or an unfavorable opinion of Aaron O'Toole? They're down like 15, 16 points in the last 2 months. What's going on there? Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? What's wrong with the Conservatives? It's not Groundhog Day just yet. The vaccines, really, though, is there a more important story than the vaccination rollout? I mean, really, doesn't it all come down to this at this point in time? Why aren't we doing as well as other countries? I'd love to get your opinion on that. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. The Rob Snow Show at ottawa.citynews.ca is the email address. And I like to look at the data. Hard to argue with data, right? I will also point out there's frustration all over the place. It's not just a Canadian thing. I get that with the pace of vaccination programs. If you watch CNN or any of the American cable news outlets at all, you know, Americans have their own frustrations and have their own questions about the way the vaccine program is going in the United States, and they're doing a lot better than we are. The European Union countries obviously upset with deliveries of vaccines, to the point the EU, the reports earlier in the week, threatening to impose export controls on so-called third countries. We would be a third country. Now, Mr. Trudeau says, well, that's nothing to worry about. But Mr. Trudeau says a lot of things, right? The budget will balance itself. Most people in the news media are relying on ourworldindata.org. And, you know, certainly I check that out on almost a daily basis. You should check it out for yourself. It's publicly available data, and it's hard to argue with data. So when you go to ourworldindata.org, you get to see all the graphs and the charts and the tables and the benchmarks and the metrics. And one is, quote, cumulative COVID-19 vaccination doses administered per 100 people. And then it says, is counted as a single dose, may not equal the total number of people vaccinated, depending on the specific dosing regime. For example, people receive multiple doses. And in Canada, as of yesterday, that number is 2.4. 2.4. For every 100 people in Canada, 2.4 of them have had at least one dose of the vaccine. 2.4 out of 100. In Israel, by comparison, which is by far the best performing country, that number is now 49.1. For every 100 people in Israel, 49 have had at least one dose of vaccine. In Canada, 2.4. Israel, 49. United Arab Emirates, 27.9. United Kingdom, 11.3. Bahrain, 8.5, 8.5. United States, 7.1. Again, Canada, 2.4. Why aren't we doing as well as, say, the UK, where it's 11? Or the United States, where it's 7? Why are we at 2.4? Italy, 2.6. Spain, 2.9. Serbia, 4.7. Hey, why aren't we doing as well as Serbia? Or Iceland, 4.5. Or Denmark, 3.7. Or Romania, 3.0. Or Slovenia at 2.9. I mean, we're doing better than some countries. We're tied with the Germans at 2.4, but France is only at 1.7. Belgium is 2.0. Sweden is 1.9. I mean, we are better than some countries, but we're a lot worse than others. What are we doing wrong? Why are we doing as well as the UK? Why aren't we doing as well as the USA? What are they doing there that we somehow haven't managed to do here? I mean, we're Canadians. We're every bit as industrious, innovative as Brits and Americans, aren't we? Aren't we? I'm just wondering out loud here. 750-1310, 750-1310, 750-1310. That's one data point. Another data point is daily COVID-19 vaccine doses administered per 100 people, shown as a 7-day rolling average per 100 people in the total population. And in Canada, as of yesterday, that number was 0.15, 0.15. Whereas in Israel, it's 1.91, UAE 0.87, UK 0.54, Bahrain 0.36, United States 0.34. Much better than the Canadian number. Now we have doses drying up. No deliveries this week. Severe restrictions for the next month. Still slightly better than some other countries. Iceland, France, Slovenia, Germany, Spain, Denmark were better than all those countries, but a lot worse than the UK, than the United States. Why? Why? And then you have a big raw number. How many doses altogether? Just total doses of vaccines administered so far. Worldwide, that number yesterday moved above 80 million doses. And out of that 80 million, the United States has administered more doses than any other country in the world at 23.5 million. And it's China at 22 million, if you can believe what the Chinese government says. Then it's the UK, 7.6 million. Israel, 4.2 million. UAE, 2.6 million. In Canada, we haven't even hit 1 million yet. 887,000, last number. And that's well behind some other countries with standards of living much like our own. Germany, 2 million. Italy, 1.5 million. Spain, 1.3 million. France, 1.1 million. It's not a gold medal winning performance for this country. I mean, we don't even make the podium. And that's just the data. And you know what? It's hard to argue with the data. Why aren't we doing better when it comes to vaccine rollout in this country? Peter, Canada, good morning.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Peter. Why aren't we doing better, Peter? What do you think is going on?
Well, I actually have a question, and maybe you can answer it for me.
Okay, probably not, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, we'll see. When polio came out, the guy who found the vaccine for that, he made it available for the world. My question is if this is such a big pandemic, and it is, and it's affecting millions of people are dying, Moderna and Pfizer, why does the world not just go to them and say, listen, congratulations on finding us a vaccine, fantastic. We're going to pay a set amount of money, and you're going to release that to other companies who can manufacture it at a faster rate, and people can stop dying. I just don't understand why something like that just isn't overruled, and for the greater good of the people. Maybe you can touch on that for me.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say about that. From what I understand, Pfizer's not making any money off of the vaccine. They're doing it at cost. And some people might make the case, if they're making money off of the vaccine, so what? They developed the technology. They made the medical breakthroughs. They made the scientific breakthroughs. And if there's a profit motive to be had, then so what? Those are kind of the two big things for me. That's not the question that I'm asking. The United Kingdom has managed to inoculate 7.6 million of its residents. The United States has managed to vaccinate with at least one dose 23 million people. In Canada, we haven't even hit the 1 million mark. Our G7 peers, why aren't we, and all the other G7 countries, more than 1 million people, more than 1 million people. We haven't even hit 1 million people. We haven't even hit 900,000 people. No doses this week. Severe limits on the vaccine for the next month. What is going on in this country? 750-1310, Rob Snow Show, City News.
When you've lost your breasts, you've sort of lost part of yourself. And then all at once you're losing your hair. You don't know who you are anymore. You want to feel like yourself again. So I think that the store, a mastectomy store, is essential because you've lost your identity. And then all at once you're looking for a wig, you need a headscarf, you need a camisole. There's nowhere to go, there's no one to talk to. This should be essential because there are more and more women that are getting breast cancer. I think it's 1 in 6. They're becoming younger. I have a client that's 18 years old. And where do they go? They need a place like this that the women that work there understand. They know what you're going through. It's changed quite a bit. Our hours are different. We're now open from 10 to 5. We're not as busy as we were. A lot of women are afraid to go out. They're afraid that maybe there are more people in the store. So that's why I try and let them know you are alone. There's absolutely nobody in the store except you and I. If there is a woman that she's very afraid, I will lock the door to make sure nobody else comes in. I'll put a sign back in 10, 15 minutes just to give her that reassurance. Before we would have 4, 5, 6 people in the store. We didn't have to turn anybody away. Now we do. Some clients do leave and they're upset because they're in the store. They said, you know, we drove 20 minutes and now we're not allowed in the store. And I try to make them understand that there's somebody in here that's going through chemo or radiation. So that's sort of changed a lot, that we're not able to have more people in the store.
If we're talking about products, there's the bras that are adapted for mastectomy, the bathing suits that are adapted to mastectomy. We have special camisoles as well, and post-surgery bras. And then we have, for women going through chemo, the wigs that we have a big selection in the store as well. We have scarves. Some women don't feel comfortable wearing a wig. They prefer to wear a scarf or a hat, so we have a huge selection of that as well. We offer compression garments as well. When you're going through a mastectomy, you might have lymphedema in your arms after a couple of years, and you have flare-ups. So we have the sleeves, the hand as well that can be covered. We show each other's our scar. We talk about the treatments, how we felt, and I guess that's what they're looking for here. That's what makes us special. We have an added value in this store. Besides everything that's in the store, that's a product that can handle any problem that a client might have. Me and Linda, we've been through. We know how it feels in our bodies.
1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Vaccines, vaccines, vaccines. Why aren't we doing better? Why aren't we every bit the winner that the Americans are and the Brits are? Well ahead of us when it comes to vaccinations. Vaccines, vaccines, vaccines. I mean, the Trudeau government talked a great game when it came to procuring the vaccines. Oh, there's so much vaccine. We'll be sharing them with other countries because, you know, we're Canadian and we're generous. You can go and get vaccinated 5 times. If you need to get vaccinated 5 times, we'll vaccinate you 5 times. Well, look, it's the end of January, and this is where the rubber meets the road salt, okay? And here we are, we're spinning our tires. We had a briefing this week at City Hall. Put it to the officials in charge of the vaccine plan. When will the next shipments arrive? Hard to say. Situation playing out in every big city and every small town across the country. The best laid plans have to be withdrawn. What did we hear this week? Managing expectations. That's what we heard from city officials this week. We need to manage expectations. In other words, don't get your expectations up. Why aren't we doing as well as the Americans? Why aren't we doing as well as our friends in the UK? Richard, Orleans. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, I think it's mainly because of the Trudeau plan.
Okay.
His plan was to inoculate Canadians by September. And Christian Freeland was on CBC 2 days ago, and she was bragging about Trudeau's plan being on target. Well, the plan was bad to begin with. All other countries' plans were to inoculate in January and with millions of vaccines. We missed the mark on that. Now, with the Liberal spin, it's suggesting that his target of September is a good one. And that's a big cause for us not being inoculated on time. Because they feel as long as they meet September, everything's okay.
Like 23 million doses in the United States.
Exactly.
7 million in the United Kingdom. Here it's not even 900,000, Richard.
And the thing is, how many Canadians are going to die because of this poor laid out plan?
Well, that's it. You know.
And the thing is, they're bragging.
This is life and death stuff here, Richard.
Yeah, they're bragging about it on CBC, saying, oh, we're on target for September. I'm a 72-year-old, and I'm concerned about my health. I'm one of the people that really needs that vaccine. And I know I'm lucky if I get it in August or September. And that's one of the reasons.
Okay. Thank you, Richard.
Welcome.
Good luck, sir. Thank you. On the Conservatives. Well, what's wrong with the Conservatives? Stuck at 30% in the polls, and Aaron O'Toole's personal favorability is down 15% in 2 months. What do you think's going on? Down 15 points, I should say. Tanya, Ottawa. Good morning, Tanya.
Good morning, Rob.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. I actually think that it's not just a conservative thing.
Okay.
When I actually looked, I don't think during a pandemic any party has had anybody emerge as a real leader. And I think what a lost opportunity. Somebody should have come out and really addressed and related to the majority of the people that they're strong, they're relatable, and they understand what the average person wants. I just saw a Ledger poll for the Conservatives where I think Aaron O'Toole was significantly down in every measurement with women, every age group.
Oh, terrible with women. Below 20% with women.
So if you were the Conservative...
You have 5 women in front of you, 4 of them are not going to vote for a Conservative.
So if you were a Conservative, would you not be in the back room trying to figure out how to become more relatable to women and having more round tables and consultations and see what do the women want? What are they looking for? So I think they've dropped the ball on that. I mean, Mr. Singh, he made a big concession to uphold the confidence vote, and none of those things have come to fruition. Where is he on those? The Green Party. I mean, we went from a society that you reuse everything, recycled everything, to during the pandemic, you throw everything out. Gloves, masks, don't reuse anything. You're not hearing from them. So I actually think if there was an election, is there anybody you could really put a check mark beside? I think Mr. O'Toole, unfortunately, is not charismatic enough.
Okay.
When he speaks, it doesn't resonate. I think that it's really unfortunate.
Well, somebody said the other day they want some... I'm sorry, Tanya. I want to know if you agree with this. Somebody called the other day and said he doesn't have the fire in the belly. They want some fire in the belly.
I don't even know that you have to be, go dirty or be aggressive, but I just feel that when I hear him speak, I can't say he's speaking to me as an average blue-collar Canadian.
Really? Okay.
And so I think that they have to work on that, but I think every party I don't think any one person has really emerged as an amazing leader through this pandemic. And I think that is a huge lost opportunity to all the parties right now.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for your call. One of the big stories this morning in the vaccine, jumping back to the vaccine, is Mia Rabson's story from the Canadian Press. You read this morning about the syringes? We got to get syringes now. Canada scrambling for smaller syringes ahead of expected Pfizer vaccine label change. Pfizer and BioNTech will cut back on how many vials of COVID-19 vaccine they send Canada this year if the federal health regulator agrees to change the vaccine label to say every vial contains 6 doses instead of 5. Initially heralded as a way to stretch the precious vaccine even further, the company stepped in to note its contracts are for doses, not vials. If a recipient can get 6 doses instead of 5, then Pfizer and BioNTech can ship fewer vials and still fulfill their contractual obligation. European health officials have complained that a shortage of the special syringes needed is making it hard to get 6 doses out of each vial. If Canada agrees to the change but can't get the 6 doses out of every vial, its goal to vaccinate 20 million people with Pfizer's 40 million doses will be impossible to meet. Mia Rabson in the Canadian Press this morning. The goal will be impossible to meet. Why is that? Why aren't we doing as well as some other countries, namely the Americans and the Brits? Anne, good morning, Anne.
Hi.
Hi.
People are probably getting sick of hearing me.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. It's almost like a rhetorical question, what you're asking. Why are we doing badly? Because of who's running the country.
Right,
because
right.
Remember all along when he was bragging about how many vaccines he was getting?
Sure.
He wasn't going for the spring as a target date. He's been saying all along September. It's because he knew that he screwed up and we weren't going to be getting the vaccine because he did not, because of that stupid thing with China. And I mean, like, this is embarrassing. And if there are people that think this is adequate, like, you are just comfortable with mediocrity. I mean, that's ridiculous. And as that other guy said, people are gonna die because Trudeau screwed up. And as far as I'm concerned, a lot of these other stories that bubble up, even about the syringes and stuff, it's just to take the heat off Trudeau. Like, I mean, remember before I was telling you the media wasn't going to stay on this topic? They're not. I mean, because I listened to 10:10 in the morning, John Moore's panel, not a word about how little we're getting vaccine.
Well,
I find that deplorable.
Well, I mean, to me, there's no bigger story. There's no more important story.
I know.
This is
this
is the way out. This is the path out. And maybe I can't speak to what's going on. Thank you, Ann, for your call on other radio stations. But to me, you just have to keep hammering away. And I think the media, for the most part, is doing a pretty good job. I was scanning the headlines this morning. Global News, British Columbia. BC officials warn new vaccine delay means second doses will be delayed. Calgary Herald. Province admits uncertainty in providing timely second COVID-19 vaccinations. Supply 2 weeks from now remains a question mark. Some of the headlines from Saskatchewan. Vaccination stalled as province awaits doses. Saskatchewan's COVID-19 vaccine supply running dry, virtually out. Saskatchewan runs out of vaccine supply. Manitoba vaccine delays, likely to force postponement of second doses. Quebec steps into wilderness. No second doses in sight. No second doses in sight. You see, this is not a pretty picture. This is not success. And it's coinciding with the spread of these new variants, which scientists warn us they're much more contagious. We're just trying to keep up right now. We can't afford to fall further behind. Rob Snow Show on City News.
When a winter storm strikes.
Winterlude across Canada. Watch the virtual show exploring Canada's winter traditions. Meet the carvers of Winterlude's first national ice carving competition. Vote online for your favorite sculpture. Celebrate Canada's artistic diversity with Fosia, Ariane Moffat, William Prince, Tracy Trash, Cornet, Ria May, and the incredible Eladj Balde. Join us February 5th at 7 p.m. This is Winterlude.
now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, January 28th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, some very light snow. It's minus 12, feels like minus 22. In Smiths Falls, minus 12. Feels like minus 21 in the wind. Here's what's making news this hour. The province reporting new COVID cases over the 2,000 mark today. After a number of days under 2,000, today there are 2,093 new cases, along with 56 more deaths. 45 of the new cases are in Ottawa, 30 in Eastern Ontario's health unit. There are 7 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and for a fourth straight day now, no new cases in Renfrew County. 700 of these new cases are in Toronto, 331 in Peel, 228 in York Region. Now, the latest COVID modeling numbers from the province are due out early this afternoon. This is the guess at what the trend is for new COVID cases. It's been a couple of weeks since the new stay-at-home orders were issued. Has that made a significant impact on the COVID infection rate? We have seen lower numbers across Eastern Ontario in the last few days, but the provincial modeling will give us all a better idea of the grip on this virus the province currently has. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson says the city does have input on the priority list for who gets vaccines next once the supply resumes. Ottawa's mayor says it makes sense for frontline workers such as those who drive for OC Transpo to be near the top of the list, but he says it is up to the province to determine who gets the shot next. City News Time, 10:33. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
We talked a lot about vaccines. I'll take any calls that you may have on vaccines. I would also like to know what you think is wrong with the Conservative Party right now. If you have any ideas, any thoughts on how the Conservatives are doing right now under the leadership of Erin O'Toole, I'd love to hear them, because I have to be honest with you. I thought they'd be doing better than they are in the polls, but so far, not so much. You take this latest poll, it's only one poll, snapshot in time. Polls are for dogs. Angus Reid Institute. Nationwide popular support, it's the Liberals by 5, Liberals 35, Conservatives 30, NDP 20, and then everything else is split among the other parties. Liberals by 5. I mean, Conservatives stuck at 30, which is basically, that's the core blue support, right? Those are the Canadians you can always count on. They're voting Conservative. But that's not good enough to win an election, right? Not even close. It's not 35 is not a great number for the Liberals, to tell you the truth. All this talk about an election, these numbers would probably end up with the same result anyway, Liberal minority government. But what's going on with the Conservatives? Why do you think they're stuck at 30%? Because the weird thing is, according to this latest poll, and again, it's just one poll, polls are for dogs, despite some obvious problems with the Liberals, vaccines, pipeline file, Governor General, horrible person, despite all of that, Liberal support is up and the Conservatives are down. I mean, you try and figure it out, right? 2 months ago was basically a tie. It was 34-33. Liberals 34, Conservatives 33 on November 24th, according to Angus Reid. 2 months later, Liberal support 35, Conservative support 30. Largest Liberal lead in 2 years. Top line number. But then you have the popularity of O'Toole, the leader. I think he's a nice guy. I've interviewed him a few times. These are not good numbers for him. And I want to know, what do you think is going on there? Why aren't Canadians warming up to Erin O'Toole? Angus Reid Institute asks its sample, do you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of Erin O'Toole? And 47% say it's unfavorable. 23 say it's unfavorable, and 23 point something say unfavorable. Net favorability of minus 15. Almost half of Canadians, you could say, view Erin O'Toole in an unfavorable light. And it's a big drop, right? It was 31 back in November. Now it's 47. I don't know. What has he done? What has he done that has so offended so many? I have a few thoughts, but I'd love to hear yours. 750-1310. 750-1310. What's wrong with the Conservatives? Stuck at 30. Half of Canadians don't like the leader, and the more they know, the less they like him. According to one poll, and polls are for dogs. Paul in Canada, what do you think is going on with the Conservatives, Paul?
Morning, Rob. The problem with the Conservative Party, which I've been a lifelong member of, is everything about us is in a negative light now, which we've bestowed upon ourselves, including Mr. O'Toole.
What do you mean, a negative light? What do you mean?
Well, when you're in opposition, you get very few sound bites.
Yeah.
The sound bites that he's getting are the residential schools mishap, the Derek Sloan mishap. So the only time people hear about him
is when he's screwing up.
Exactly.
Right.
So, and we live in a snapshot world.
Right.
No one's going to look into any more of his policies.
Right.
They're just going to say, well, that's horrible. He must be. And you cannot make mistakes when you're in opposition. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Paul's on to something there. It is Justin Trudeau all the time, right? It's all Justin Trudeau all the time. He's in the spotlight. He's doing the Rideau Cottage thing. He's the one with the coverage uninterrupted on cable news. You're the opposition leader. How do you even compete with that? How do you pierce that? You don't command the same sort of profile. You're not in charge. Trudeau's in charge. And Angus Reid says the pandemic's number one issue for Canadians. Of course it is. And Canadians, they want to know what the person in charge is doing about the pandemic. Pure profile. There's no parliament. There's no question period. The big scandal, the weed charity, it's in the rearview mirror. Trudeau survives another one. All it cost him was his Minister of Finance. So that's one issue. I think, the only time you ever hear about Aaron O'Toole is when the media reports on something self-inflicted, like Derek Sloan or whatever. On vaccines, Marie, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
I'm good, Marie. How are you?
I'm not bad.
Good.
But I'm actually very worried.
Very worried. Okay.
Mr. Trudeau did not order enough vaccines.
Well, he's ordered 400. I don't think it's about ordering. It's like 400 million doses that they ordered, right? So.
Well,
it's the delivery. It's it's. You can order the pizza, but if the pizza doesn't show up for 2 hours, it's, do you call that pizzeria again?
It's a lot of different, you order from different companies so that if one has trouble like Pfizer's having, you can get some from somewhere else.
Right.
Okay.
They say they've ordered from 7 different companies, but the fact is only 2 of them are approved, Moderna and Pfizer, right?
By Health Canada?
By Health Canada, yeah.
Okay, well, come on, move your tushes.
What about the AstraZeneca Oxford? Why isn't that approved? They're already using that in the UK, for example.
Right. So it's it's very frightening, and it's when he comes up and he tells everybody with his smug punch in the face that
be nice.
Oh, I really don't like him. He's to me, he's like a slithery snake. I'm sorry. And he comes up and he tells us, well, you're going to get some by the end of March. Oh, you're going to get some by September. And by that time, there'll be at least 10 more mutations. And look, there'll be as many mutations as the world needs to keep this horrible pandemic alive. And a lot of people are going to die because of the bad decisions of Justin Trudeau.
Okay. Thank you, Murray. Thank you. No fan. I don't think she's a fan of Justin Trudeau there. Colin in Canada. Good morning, Colin. You're on City News.
Good morning. Yeah, just on the vaccines. Clearly there was obviously huge mistakes made in the procurement and the writing of the contracts for vaccines for Canada, and that's squarely on the federal government. But a couple of weeks ago, on your show, there were people talking about, there's more vaccines in the freezers than there are in people's arms. Why aren't we getting it out faster in Ontario? And at the time, the government was saying, well, we better hang on to some to give people the second dose, because the ideal number was 21 days. Get a dose, and then 21 days later, get the second dose to give you full immunity, or the best chance at the highest immunity. Then they said, well, we can stretch it out a little further. Now they're saying 47 days or something like that. We're going to be bumping up against that for some of the people who got the first shot, because Pfizer is not delivering as many as they said they would deliver. Now they're on a break, and we haven't, Health Canada and the federal government has not moved to approve AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson. So we could have, hundreds of thousands of doses that are going to go past the date of the first inoculation. What does that mean? Does that mean we start over with all those people? This has been a colossal failure in procurement and contract writing with the government. And, you're talking about the conservative numbers versus liberal numbers. Just wait, because as your previous caller, two callers ago said, the opposition leader, it's the hardest job for anybody, conservative, liberal, NDP. When you're an opposition leader, it's the hardest job in the country to get any type of coverage unless you're doing something bad. Okay. So let's wait. Campaigns matter, and Canadians will remember, what this government is responsible for.
Thank you for your call, Colin. We have some breaking news. Just in to City News Ottawa. Ottawa students will return to class on Monday. Ottawa students will return to class on Monday. We'll have full details during our 11 o'clock newscast. So we're talking vaccines. We're talking about this poll from Angus Reid, Conservative stuck at 30. Aaron O'Toole's personal favorability in the tank. I wondered, David, do you think American politics might play a role in the Conservative numbers right now? The Trump thing. Trump and his behavior and kind of like the taint, the stench of Trump is kind of like drifted northward.
No, people are worried. People don't want to see that here. So
yeah, but there's been as well very effective social media hacks at the Conservatives.
Yes.
Kind of like the hidden agenda. Stephen Harper will put soldiers in the streets. If you hate Trump, then be afraid of Aaron O'Toole. Soldiers in the streets. Remember, Aaron O'Toole is a right-winger, too, just like Donald Trump, and soldiers in the streets.
That's more or less it, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because in politics, perception is reality. And you got to score one for the Liberals. I mean, they're masters of the dark art, right? They are doing a bang-up job of defining the Conservative leader before he has a chance to define himself. And look, turnabout is fair play. The Conservatives are hardly lily white on that. Stéphane Dion, do you think it's easy to make priorities? They used that against him. Michael Ignatieff, he didn't come back for you. He didn't come back for you. Justin Trudeau, he's just not ready. Nice hair, though. You remember?
That was an awesome ad.
Yeah, it didn't work, though. Didn't work. The third time it didn't work. So what's wrong with the Conservatives? What's wrong with the vaccine rollout? This is the Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show on City News.
Now playing on the...
No Nut Butter is a business where we make allergy-friendly spreads, so alternatives to peanut butter, Nutella, or those kind of things that kids and adults like to have on toast or on a banana or on an apple, and aren't really available to people with severe food allergies or allergies to the top allergens. When you're an allergy parent, you read every label because you need to know the details of every ingredient that's in the products that you're going to feed your kid. So we found that a lot of the products that we were looking at had may contain warnings, which we can't have, and had just so many ingredients in them that you don't know if there's a weird unknown ingredient that is kind of disguised under a different name. So we started No Nut Butter so that we would have the opportunity to have products that were safe and free from the top allergens and had really simple ingredients in them so that you would know exactly what you were feeding your kids. We make 4 different products at No Nut Butter. So we make a pumpkin seed butter, which is our alternative to peanut butter. So it only has pumpkin seeds, roasted pumpkin seeds, and some kind of oil in it. So we usually use corn oil or olive oil. And then we make what we call Choco Pumpkin, and it is our alternative to a chocolate hazelnut spread. So it is our pumpkin seed butter with our chocolate spread, so very much chocolate hazelnut spread. We make a coconut caramel, so it is coconut milk and sugar, and it is our kind of vegan option for caramel, because typically caramel has lots of butter and dairy in it. And then we make an apple butter, which is apples and cinnamon and sugar, and that's it. We do also make a sugar-free pumpkin seed butter option because we have some diabetics and just some people who don't want sugar in their lives, and so we do offer that, but you'd have to custom order it. There are very strict rules around producing products, particularly nut-free products. You aren't allowed to cook in your own kitchen, which makes a lot of sense. If you have a dog, you don't want to cook in your own kitchen. But from a nut standpoint, it's just making sure that you have everything really clean and organized. So we cook all of our products in a commercial kitchen so that we can keep all of those health and safety procedures really tight and together. My personal business started a company called Shop Local Ontario during the pandemic, so we were pretty well equipped to go forward into the pandemic in a world of e-commerce and transacting online. You can find us online at nonutbutter.com, or you can find us on Facebook, No Nut Butter, or on Instagram at No Nut Butter.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
David, I've got to hand it to you. You've lined up a heck of a final hour for the Rob Snow Show. I'm just looking at it here. The president of the Ottawa Hotel Association, Ottawa-Gatineau Hotel Association, Steve Ball, is going to be on the line. We're going to ask him about this idea of having quarantine hotels. Having travelers who have been abroad coming back to Canada, they land here, this idea, you've got to quarantine at your own expense in a hotel for 2 weeks. I wonder if the hotels would welcome the business. They probably welcome the business. My gosh, the Ottawa Senators are bad so far this season. They won the home opener, and now they've lost 6 in a row. They don't look very good. They're not very fun to watch. There's a game tonight at 10 o'clock. Thank goodness I go to bed well before that. I'm not watching it. Ken Warren, unfortunately, it's his job to watch the Ottawa Senators. He's the Ottawa Citizen hockey writer. Torturous. And Hans Albrecht, Vice President, Horizons ETF. What's the do GameStop stock for me right now, David?
Oh, it's down.
It's down.
Crashing.
It's been up. It's been down. It's been up.
It's been up and down. It's currently sitting at $297 US. That's down 14% in the last.
Down 14%.
Like literally in the last 10 minutes.
But 2 weeks ago, this was a $30 stock. $30.
At one point, it was as low as $8.
Reddit, because of the chat rooms on Reddit about the stock market causing the big short squeeze and busting hedge funds. What the heck is going on? And Randall Denley, author and post-media columnist on some of the planning decisions made at the local level. We'll ask him about that. He has been covering planning for a long time in this city and writing columns about it for the Ottawa Citizen. So it's a great hour. We're talking about the Conservatives. We're talking about the vaccine program. You know, for example, why is it that the Americans have managed to administer 23 million doses? In Britain, it's more than 7 million. In Canada, it's not even 1 million yet. Why aren't we doing as well as the Brits or the Americans? Anna, good morning, Anna.
Hey, good morning, Rob. Hey, you're looking pretty spiffy in those polka dots on Channel
You like
22.
that? Yeah, it's pretty sharp, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
Yeah. I agree with a number of your previous callers when they were referring to the problems with procurement and contracting.
Okay.
And, I've been watching the minister the last few months, and at one point she said Canada was in the front of the line.
Right.
But, August, I don't think that was front of the line when other countries were signing in May and June. So I think that's a big part of the problem. I mean, they must have known, how many people are actually vulnerable in Canada. Like, let's say there's 1 million. They should have known that we needed to get 2 million doses up front as soon as possible. So I just don't know why they haven't done that. It's a big failure.
Okay. And I believe you've called before when we were talking about government procurement and how government contracts work. Didn't you have some history in that?
Yes, that's right.
Your background is kind of in that, right? Government procurement, right? Yeah.
So,
I remember that during the We Charity scandal.
Yeah. And if you remember it, during the We Charity, when they, didn't want to dig up documents, they were saying they didn't have time to do that because they were so focused on COVID.
Right.
Yeah.
Better to be fast than to be right. Was their thinking.
And then one more thing, with the delays in the second shot, how would you feel about being part of an unauthorized clinical trial?
Yeah, no thanks. Maybe some people, but it's not even medically ethical to do things like that. So,
no,
Anna, I think.
No, but I just mean, the delay means that,
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for your call. Some email, the Rob Snow Show at ottawa.citynews.ca. Jamie writes, I used to support the Conservatives, but I can't anymore because of the amount of support for a number of cons had for Trump, like Rex Murphy and Conrad Black, who shielded for Trump for 4 years. Comment section of conservative newspapers rife with Trump redneck supporters like Brian Mulroney. Yup. Come on, Jamie.
A notorious redneck.
Yeah, notorious redneck, Brian Mulroney. Diane Lascelle. Diane writes, Rob, I'm a woman. All my friends are voting conservative. Mr. O'Toole speaks well. I think he speaks to all Canadians. He's limited as to what he can do during the pandemic. He keeps on asking questions to which he never gets an answer from Trudeau and his Liberal buddies. He attacks, but he still never gets any answers. I'd feel a lot better with O'Toole being Prime Minister. Not charismatic enough? We have a charismatic PM, and look at the mess he's doing. Voters just want the free money from Trudeau. Tony writes, the vaccine fiasco squarely on the shoulders of Trudeau. The contract was written on a napkin like the green energy contract for the Liberals. From day one, his government has floundered. Too many people in high places with little or no experience. When ministers mess up, they resign. They take the heat off the real problem, Mr. Trudeau. He has people have been pointing this out on Twitter. You notice all the ministers that are gone? And yet nobody has said to Mr. Trudeau, you are the weakest link. Remember that? You are the weakest link. Goodbye. Like the Justice Minister, Jody Wilson, the Health Minister, Jane Philpott, the Finance Minister, Bill Morneau, the Innovation Minister, Navdeep Bains. There's probably a few more. Irene, Ottawa. Good morning, Irene.
Good morning. I was wanting to talk about the Conservatives, but one thing I want to say about the vaccine, they say September we should be immunized, but they don't say what year.
Yeah.
No, but seriously,
right.
How would you get 30 million people vaccinated between June and September? Not going to happen.
Okay.
So I think they're playing on that. But the other thing about the Conservatives, why they're not doing so well, I think they have professional headhunters in the Liberal Party, because when the last scam came up with Jody Wilson-Raybould and Philpott,
right,
one of them said that in 2013 they didn't belong to any political party. So I'm thinking that the Liberals have been working for 2 years before the 2015 election to recruit star candidates.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
Because they had no money supposedly in 2015 election.
Right.
And the other thing in the Halifax Herald about a month ago, I was reading an article about Justin Trudeau contacting these young people in Spryfield, Spryfield Boys and Girls Club, So he's working behind the scenes.
Well, I mean, a number of people have publicly, mused, why, for example, there's this report, Blacklock's had it today and Post Media has it today, $650 million in CERB paid to people who are 15 years old, 16 years old, and 17 years old. So some people are kind of saying, well, they're Liberal voters forever now.
Yeah.
Right? If you're 15, 16, 17, oh, Mr. Trudeau. Yeah, he's the prime minister who gave me $2,000 a month that great summer of the pandemic year.
Yeah, like he's a rock star.
Best summer ever, right? Yeah.
That's how the young people are seeing him. He's a rock star.
I suppose, but yeah.
And he calls them, so he doesn't even go into House of Commons. No, he's too busy doing all, reaching out and looking great and getting patted on the back. And for the life of me, I don't know what Kool-Aid they're drinking in Nova Scotia.
Okay.
Because,
because, well, maybe it's spiked, Irene. I don't know.
It must be.
Yeah. All right. Gotta run. No time? You're saying no time? You're going to cut off all these people?
You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
All right. You can say you're going to have to explain it to them, David. Okay. All right. The 11 o'clock news is coming up. The very latest on Back to School. There's big breaking news on Back to School for Ottawa. Andrew Boyle has rushed right in with the breaking news. He's going to break it for you in just minutes here on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
WW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smith Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, January 28th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's minus 12, but it feels like minus 21 in the wind. Here's what's making news this hour. Well, breaking news, the four main school boards in our region now have the go-ahead to resume in-class learning on Monday. Ottawa Carleton, the Catholic Board in the city, along with the Upper Canada and Catholic Board of Eastern Ontario, all have the green light now by the Education Minister to bring students in elementary and secondary school back to class starting on February 1st. Provincial Chief Medical Officer of Health, along with the regional counterparts, have all said the 280,000 students altogether may return on Monday and will benefit. The province agrees. Growing medical consensus. Children benefit from in-person learning, also their well-being, their development, and their mental health. The province is reporting new COVID cases over 2,000 today after a number of days under that number. 2,093, the new case number today, along with 56 more deaths. 45 of the new cases are in Ottawa, 30 are in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. There are 7 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and once again today, no new cases in Renfrew's Health Unit. 700 of the new cases are reported from the Toronto area, 331 from Peel, and 228 in York Region. City News Time, 11:01. Police have charged a 43-year-old Ottawa man with 10 offenses relating to sex assault and child abuse, in addition to previous charges that were laid in 2019. Officers say these new charges are in relation to a male victim who was under the age of 14 at the time. That was between 2012 and 2013. Danielle Dan Walker is facing 10 charges, including possession of child porn, making sexually explicit material available to a child, an invitation to sexual touching under the age of 16 years. Investigators are concerned there could be more victims. Anyone with information is asked to contact police, or you can contact Crime Stoppers. The OPP is asking for your help. They're trying to identify a person of interest in an incident that took place in Carleton Place. Police are asking anyone who may recognize an individual to contact them. You can see a picture up at ottawa.citynews.ca. No other information has been provided so far by the OPP. Now your forecast, and here is meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Near -7 in many areas this morning, and that's our high for the day. A bit cooler for the rest of the day. Near -12, it'll feel like -24. We'll have sun and cloud today. For tonight, partly cloudy, -18. It'll feel like -30. And tomorrow, sun and cloud, a gusty northwest wind to -12. For today, already reached the high, -7.
And right now in both Ottawa and Smiths Falls, it's -12 degrees. It feels like -21. Ontario Provincial Police have charged a 20-year-old man with mischief. It's in connection to damaged trees. A picture posted to Twitter by police looks like a tree at the side of the road in South Glengarry with the top portion cut off. The accused has been charged with mischief over $5,000 and is expected to appear in court at a later date. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Quarantine hotels. What about that idea? Steve Ball is president of Ottawa-Gatineau Hotel Association. Good morning. Welcome back.
Hi, good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hanging in there.
Good. So there, I'm sure you're well aware of the idea that's being floated out there. Somebody lands at whatever the case might be, Pearson, Ottawa, Vancouver, Trudeau Airport, Montreal, whatever the case is. And they have to isolate at their own expense, 14 days in a hotel. What would the hoteliers think of that?
Well, I think the devil will be in the details when that is brought forward. But ultimately, hotels are declared an essential service back last March. So we've been doing a lot of isolation business and accommodating various scenarios throughout the COVID pandemic. But as you're probably aware, Ottawa is not really a large international destination. Most of the international travel lands in Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, and Montreal. So I think what we need to understand is the isolation in the city in which you return to, or would it transfer, for example, for someone that flew into Toronto and then
into Ottawa? Well, for example, what if for example, when in the years past, when I've flown to the Caribbean, for example, for a couple of weeks, back in the good old days, Steve, I would typically fly back into Montreal, and then connect back into Ottawa, with my final destination being in Ottawa. Now, what if I would have to quarantine? Would I quarantine in Montreal? Would I quarantine in Ottawa? That's one of the questions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, logically, you would assume that it would be in the
final
city
destination, I would think.
Well, no, I actually think from a public health perspective, if you're truly trying to contain potential transmission, you'd probably want to contain yourself in the city you arrived at. And frankly, you'd probably want to be scooted right to a hotel for 2 weeks. So again, the devil will be in the details. And
right.
I think the logic would make me think along those lines. You don't want to jump into a car and drive a period of time or take an additional
flight. Okay. All right. Very interesting. Very interesting. But generally speaking, would it be good for the hotel business right now? Let's face it. It's brutal. Would the industry as a whole, taking out even the local angle of it, as a whole, do you think be open to it?
So, yeah, I mean, the hotels, again, back at the beginning of this pandemic, changed all of their protocols. They being declared an essential service, they realized they had to pivot their business. So cleaning protocols have changed. A lot of rooms will sit vacant for 2 or 3 days to provide safety to the staff before cleaning it. They've got good social and physical distancing measures put in place because it's a controlled environment. There's touchless entries. There's just strictly room service. The pools and the gyms are closed. So really the hotels can accommodate just about any business. I mean, we're in the business of putting people together, not hiding people. And so although we can do that very well, and any business would be welcome at this stage, really what we're looking forward to is getting back into the business in which we do, and that's welcoming people to our communities, right?
Right. So when you're doing not necessarily quarantining, but say isolation, whether that's for first responders, give us, because the hotel industry has been involved in that from the very beginning, as you mentioned. Give us an example of what that involves. Who's been taking advantage of that for that service, for example?
Yeah, so Public Health has provided that service and paid for that service when frontline workers feel like there's risk for them going home, and somebody chooses to instead want to check into a hotel. The hotels, I can't speak specifically for each one, but they'll organize and structure their business in such a way that there might be floors dedicated to a certain type of clientele. There might be certain services that are offered, whether, again, it's room service. Generally, they don't clean the rooms. If one guest checks in for a week or two, there is no cleaning of the room. So it really depends on the situation, Rob. If it's more serious, like an infected segment, they might treat that a little bit differently. But ultimately, the benefit of a hotel is a controlled environment. You have the ability of establishing protocols in advance of taking the business.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the current industry conditions here in Ottawa. What do you use? What term do you use? Vacancy rate? Occupancy rate? What's that like now?
We use the term dismal attached to those two descriptors. I mean, we're operating at generally in single-digit occupancy, and when you close borders and you encourage people to stay home, we're going to be the long haulers of the COVID industry and the COVID impacts. So if people aren't traveling, we're not doing business. And until such time as vaccines get rolled out and travel becomes safe again to do so, and ultimately it's promoted, and not promoted by communities, but promoted by public health and governments, we're going to remain hurting. So we're taking advantage of federal programs and provincial programs to try to keep this critical industry alive and well for when we do recover.
How many jobs would you say in the National Capital Region are we talking about here?
So we generally have about 6,000 employees within our membership group, and I would say 80% of them are currently on furlough or laid off.
80%?
Yep. Well, sure.
Wow.
And when you're single-digit occupancy...
So about 6,000 people or so.
So 80% of that 6,000, so closer to 5. And I mean, the challenge is when many properties function on conventions and meetings. You usually need a large contingent of staff to manage large groups, and there just are no large groups. So until that comes back, we feel for our employees. We're doing as much as we can to support them. We're looking forward to having them back, but we just need the business first.
Yeah, and it's like the entire ecosystem, right? It's not, those are the hotel employees, right?
Yep.
So then you have, people who drive the shuttles and people who help, the parked cars, people who drive the taxis to the airport. All of that stuff it must be all suffering, right? Everything related to.
Economists right across the planet are clearly indicating that you won't run into full economic recovery until the tourism industry recovers.
Right.
Because the trickle-down effect, you're absolutely right, to attractions, to restaurants, to retail, to events. The trickle-down effect is enormous. And just in our market, in 2019, we did $2.2 billion worth of economic impact from visitors. And we're estimating 70% of that has deteriorated or gone. So it's a key player. It's a big industry, and it's an important industry because it brings new money into communities. It's not recirculating existing money. It's new investment in communities.
Yeah, the canal opened today. Nice to have the canal open, but it's not a season like any other. Typically, back in the good old days, like 2019, would this typically be very busy time of year? Canal open, Winterlude coming around, and these kind of,
I mean, through the winter months, again, we depend on meetings and conventions for the most part.
Okay.
But from a leisure perspective, all of those are important to us, and leisure now is really the only potential business we may have in traditional tourism travel, with the exception of maybe isolation business and government business, but. So, leisure is critical. The canal, it's not going to help much, and Winterlude has gone virtual. So,
right.
Again, we've got our belts on the last hole to tighten, and it now is just a matter of hanging on until we get some herd immunity and vaccines get circulated to a larger portion of the population. I don't see any other way to explain it.
What's your opinion on this plan for $129 million revamp of the Byward Market?
Oh, I do a little dance if you could see me. I live in the Byward Market.
Oh, you do? Okay, all right.
I do, and I did 30 years ago. So I've had a pretty good perspective of the transition over a lengthy period of time, and it's time. The Byward Market is a little gem for us.
Yeah. It's changed a lot. I worked down there for 20 years, right? There's been a lot of intensification, a lot of infill, a lot of new condo development. What needs to be improved, in your opinion, there?
Well, certainly the public realm plan to beautify streets and make streets safer and make it more flexible to be able to accommodate different types of events is right on par, right on point. It's exactly what needs to be done. There's some larger issues that I fought for 30 years ago, and I'm still fighting for around how we govern our social agencies. I sit on the board of directors of Shepherds of Good Hope, and they do fantastic work, but we really need to rethink how we deal with the issues around mental health and homelessness, and I think we need to consider about how we refund that so that we go in a different direction. And then I've always had a problem with the truck route. We're a large city now, and to have thousands and thousands of trucks running right through our downtown core just doesn't make sense to me anymore.
Along King Edward, there, Steve, right? Along King Edward, right on the way to the bridge over to Quebec, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's really time to rethink our interprovincial strategies and bridges. And now that Alexander Bridge is looking at being replaced, I think we need to look at the bigger picture and how do we finally solve that issue as well.
I thought there was a plan for another new hotel in the Byward Market, was there not? Near the parking garage there?
Yep.
Is that still on, or?
It's hard to say what's going to be deferred and delayed.
Okay.
The building I live in, there's a new hotel being, they're digging a hole right now for one on Rideau Street in Waller. And, Whether that gets modified slightly, there's always plans for new hotels, Rob, and it's actually good. It's confidence in our industry, and I believe the tourism industry will only grow once we put this behind us. But we need to do it in such a way that we're accommodating the right kinds of accommodations in hotels, so that it fits our marketplace and so that they work. And that's an important conversation we have within our industry regularly.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. Great conversation.
Oh, thank you, Rob.
All the best. All the best to everybody working in your industry, sir. The better times are ahead. Steve Ball, President, Ottawa-Gatineau Hotel Association. Are better times ahead for the Ottawa Senators? Can't get much worse. Ken Warren is going to join us from Post Media, covers the Sens for Post Media. This is the Rob Snow Show, Rogers TV, City News.
Papa Jack was started 14 years ago, really by accident more than anything. A friend of mine had bought a grocery store. A popcorn machine was in there. He didn't want it. I ended up by buying it. My family thought I was nuts. When I first said, come and pick up this popcorn machine, my son said, what the heck for? I won't use exact words. But anyway, we started, and it just kept on growing and growing. But at the time, I was the only one selling popcorn in Ottawa. But we persevered as a family, and here we are. So it's been very, very rewarding for my family and myself. And to see our brand name, Papa Jack, and Papa Jack came out of, I wanted something that was going to be very bilingual. So Papa, and then in Ontario, everybody called me Jack, even though my name is Jacques. In Quebec, it's fine, it's Jacques, but in Ontario, it was always Jack. So we married the two together, Papa, Jack. With the store that we have on Thurston Drive, it basically, the factory's in the back. If you come into the store, you can see how the popcorn is being made during the week. So it adds an extra layer of, you can see the sanitation, you can see how we do it. It's not like making popcorn. Most people thought when I started this, I was making popcorn in my garage or in my basement. No, never did. It was started in this building, in the back of the building, and then we kept growing and growing until what we have now. My daughter and my son came up with a brilliant idea to do a fundraiser online. So basically all people have to do is to register here, and we give them a special code number. And with that code number, they tell their friends or their neighbors, everybody, to buy online from us with that code number. And then at the end of each period, could be 2 weeks, could be a month, then we'll pay them a 20% of all the businesses that we got through that code number. One thing I'd like to say is thank you to all the Ottawa people who have supported us and support local businesses. It sometimes people, they talk about buying locally. Now it becomes that much more important to buy locally, to support your local businesses, because not too many of them are going to survive this. We're fortunate that we're so far so good.
Voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
The Ottawa Senators have played 7 games. They have won one of them, the first game of the season against the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have lost 5 in regulation time, and they've lost 1 in overtime. They've lost 6 in a row. They have 3 points over those 7 games. And this is the only bright side, and this is how I prefer to look at it. They are only 5 points out of a playoff spot, if you wanted to look at it that way right now. It's 11:20. Let's talk some Senators hockey from Post Media. Ken Warren joins us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, as the hockey writer, covering the Senators for the Citizen, for the Sun. Are you obligated as part of your job position to stay up late and watch these hockey games?
Hey, I'm glad you brought that up. I was gonna plug my own work sometimes with the late deadlines in the paper. People can read expanded coverage online. It's called Senators Afterthoughts, and I've been doing a lot of extra stuff with numbers and quotes and post-game analysis. So people, if you're looking for it in your paper and you go, oh, why didn't we get the late game in Vancouver? Well, that's so you understand the media and the deadlines of the newspaper.
Right.
You can read it all online. So
okay.
Staying up late and watching, the misery, I guess, or the mess that's been in the last, on this road trip, 3 pretty ugly losses, and I am obligated, and it's going to be a long road for this team.
How surprised are you that they are as bad as they are so far, Ken?
I'm not surprised. I mean, you mentioned off the top, there's this many points out of the playoffs. I mean, they weren't going to make the playoffs.
Right.
And they tried to set as an organization, tried to set those expectations or lack of expectations out there early and saying, look, we are rebuilding. We're going to try to get as many young guys in the lineup as we can, and it's going to take them time, and there's going to be some tough nights. And I understood that. I think most fans understood that. I think what they don't understand is that almost every night is going to be a rough night where they're getting blown out of games. And I think people might accept losing an overtime game, for instance, a game that they should have won, but they lost, late in the game. That one game against Winnipeg, they had it in control and lost late, and that happens with a young team. But losing these games 7-1 and 5-1 and seemingly lost in their own end for extended periods is the stuff that's got to wear and be troubling for the team and the fans.
To me, I'm just a fan. Okay, I'm just a fan. I'm just a guy who watches the games on TV. I wonder what the idea is. This what was promised to me as a fan of the Ottawa Senators? I was told that this was going to be a team. I don't expect them to make the playoffs, but I thought they'd be young and exciting and fast, and instead they're old and slow and soft. Like, what's going on there? I feel like just from a marketing standpoint, you're trying to sell me something, but you're not giving me the goods, Ken. Sorry.
Oh, okay, let's take the glass as half full.
All right.
Okay. No. Let's go. The glass is 1/10 full, maybe.
All right.
There was a line. Brady Tkachuk, Josh Norris, and Drake Batherson.
Yeah.
I think they have been pretty dynamic. They have been pretty good. They're playing them together, and they have a lot of chances. They haven't always cashed in. I think they've come up to expectations playing together, and I think for the most part, when they're on the ice, things happen. They might not score, but they're generating chances and some excitement. But after that, you look through this thing and you go, where are the veterans? And some of them were brought in to help make these guys not make some mistakes, and some of the other younger guys, and those guys just haven't been there. And that it starts with the goaltending. Matt Murray's going to be back in there tonight, and he has to pressure 7 games into a season. This guy has to rebound after not a good game in the 7-1 game. He didn't play last night, but he's coming back in, and he's thrown into this environment again. He has to steal them a win, or maybe not necessarily steal them a win. He has to make some saves and keep them in games.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's so deflating. I saw the first period and a half last night. The Sens are all over them. They're having finally a good period. And boom, they come down. There's a shot, bad rebound, soft goal. Next thing you know, they're down 1-0, right, after dominating the play. It's very deflating. It's got to be very deflating for them. They really do need better goaltending, right? So
they do, and it's harder on the goalie. I'm not making excuses for them, but they went out to get a goalie that won 2 cups, thinking that this defense. And I had no illusions about this defense. I thought they were going to be not very good at all, and the point of bringing in a goalie that won 2 Stanley Cups is to put Band-Aids over that and to keep them in games. And, there's going to be errors in front of them, but then this guy's got to make a save or two to keep it close. But the defense has been as advertised like that, maybe worse. Thomas Chabot is struggling like nobody can believe how much he's struggling. He's supposed to be the leader back there. And
there's a lot of scattered and running around, and nobody seems to know what the other guy is doing when they get in trouble. I mean, you're going to have breakdowns. It's just how do you respond to the breakdowns and cover up for the mistakes, and that's just not happening.
Okay, let me ask you this. So they play Vancouver tonight again, right, at 10 o'clock, and then they play Edmonton. How many games do they play against Edmonton?
2 more against McDavid and Draisaitl, so that should be fun to watch.
Right.
Yeah,
so what happens then? Let me ask you, what happens if this team comes back to Ottawa and they're not like 1-6, but they're 1-8, or like, and the winless streak is like 8 games and 9 games. I don't know what DJ Smith's contract is like with the Ottawa Senators, but I mean, are jobs on the line here? Are coaching jobs on the line here?
Not yet. I mean, a lot of the issue early on for the fans here is and people watching this are saying, okay, we understood that the kids were going to need to learn through their mistakes, and Christian Wolanin is probably a good example. He's injured. He got injured last night, but a young defenseman, can he play in the NHL? Well, they got to give him a chance, and he was in and out, and they've finally decided they're going to give him a chance, and he's made some mistakes, and people, I think, generally understood, hey, you have to see if this guy can play, and players like him. But the problem is, again, the players that are brought in to help these guys to say, okay, we'll guide you through these tough moments, have not been very good. And some of the other younger guys, Colin White's the ideal example here, hadn't been playing until last night. If you're going to lose, I think for the way the fans and the rebuild had been sold, let's lose with the young guys so that we know either one, know whether they can play at this level, or 2, can develop by making mistakes and having some rewards here or there. So I don't think jobs are on the line, but there's got to be a reevaluation of who's playing in the lineup. They've got players like Logan Brown and Alex Formenton and Eric Brandstrom, hot prospects that were sent to Belleville, even though they're not playing. And at some point, they're going to have to say, okay, these guys have to play to see, if it's going to be a losing season, let's play the kids. And you have to have some veterans surrounding them, but maybe some of these guys that aren't doing much need to take a long seat on the bench.
Ken Warren, great to hear from you this morning. Do you nap in the afternoon to prepare for...
Well, it's a bit bizarre because normally you'd be on the road traveling and you adjust to that time zone, right? So you're... Yeah, there's some groggy mornings and trying to figure out what the times really are because you get mixed up with time zones. But I about 8 o'clock at night sometimes when you stayed up the night before, you're waiting up for another game and you're trying to figure out what time it is. Yeah, for sure.
Great to have the analysis, though. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thanks.
Yeah, from Post Media, Ken Warren. 11:29. We're back right after the news on City News.
Experience Winterlude across Canada. Watch the virtual show exploring Canada's winter traditions. Meet the carvers of Winterlude's first national ice carving competition. Vote online for your favorite sculpture. Celebrate Canada's artistic diversity with Fosia, Ariane Moffat, William Prince, Tracy Trash, Cornet, Ria May, and the incredible Eladj Balde. Join us February 5th at 7 p.m. This is Winterlude.
FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, January 28th. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buchan. Right now in Ottawa, it's overcast and some gusty winds, minus 12 with a wind chill of minus 23. In Smiths Falls, mostly cloudy, minus 14. Here's what's making news right now. Schools in 4 more public health units in the province will be reopening for in-person learning on Monday. That includes students at all school boards for Ottawa and also students in Eastern Ontario. Education Minister Stephen Lecce says the government made the decision based on recommendations from the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health. This announcement comes after the government allowed schools in 7 other public health units, that includes Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and Renfrew County, to resume in-person learning this week. Students in all the other public health units, that includes those in the COVID hotspots of Toronto, Peel, and Windsor, will continue to learn online. There are 2,093 new cases of COVID-19 in Ontario today, back above the 2,000 mark. 56 more deaths are reported by provincial health officials. Public Health Ontario reporting 45 new cases for Ottawa. Yesterday, the health unit confirmed 72. Elsewhere, locally, no new cases for Renfrew County. That's 3 days in a row. 7 new cases for Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and 30 for Eastern Ontario. The numbers out of over 64,000 tests, hospitalizations, and the number of patients in ICU in this province have dropped. Federal opposition politicians urging the Liberal government to move quickly to put new restrictions on international travel as the COVID variants spread. New Health Canada data is showing an increase in infections directly connected to foreign arrivals. There are more than 50 cases of the UK variant confirmed in Canada. Most of them involve people who recently traveled into the country. Conservative health critic Michelle Rempel-Garner wants the government to require mandatory rapid COVID-19 test for all arrivals and have that test repeated midway through the 2-week quarantine period. I'm Sarah Buchan. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's being called the Reddit Rebellion. Wild rides in individual stocks. On the markets, it's crazy, it's wild, it's frightening, it's exhilarating. Some people think it is revolutionary. Sticking it to those billionaires. On Wall Street, Hans Albrecht is back from Horizons ETF. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
What's it like being in your industry right now? Your eyes must be glued to Bloomberg terminals and CNBC right now.
It is. I think this situation has sort of captured the attention of just about every news outlet, even internationally. It's sort of this, the power. You know, I think what's happening here, for folks who don't know, you've seen these stocks that are heavily shorted by big institutional investors and hedge funds, and they've been sort of pushed up very significantly. And I think, you know, the interesting thing about it, I think it's showing us the strength of social media, the strength of chat rooms and websites like Wall Street Bets and Reddit, and I think it is a new paradigm that we have to respect.
But is it necessarily investing, or is it gambling? GameStop, for example, is like an unprofitable chain of video game stores. It's Blockbuster Video. Really, it is. People aren't investing in Blockbuster Video. They're gambling with a stock, right? That's what it is, right?
Well, look, I think we're going to see irrational exuberance now and then. It happens over time. It's a natural thing in stock markets. But who are we to say what the fundamentals are? I mean, you know, a lot of companies are transforming digitally these days. There's an effort to transform GameStop, which is a fantastic brand, a well-known brand, into something that could perhaps be a delivery mechanism for digital games, things like that. So I think these days you have to be careful. What are fundamentals? What is a reasonable valuation? You know, the so-called smart people got Tesla wrong. Tesla's a 10-bagger. It's gone up 10 times in the last year, and they got that completely wrong. And so, you know, is Tesla a car company, or is it about technology? Is it about their battery technology, their camera technology? There are cameras now that can see around corners. Are these technologies that can lend themselves to military uses and healthcare uses and things like that? that. So I think in the realm of technology where, gaming falls under that, I think you have to start to see bigger. Now, is GME worth $500? I don't know. It's worth what the market will pay. But I think when we start talking about valuations, I mean, Apple's tripled the valuation from that it was a few years ago, and it's a slower growth company. Why is Apple triple the valuation now? I don't know.
All right. Okay. Now, look, 5 days ago, this stock in New York, GameStop Corporation, ticker symbol GME, was trading for $42 5 days ago. This morning, it was almost $500. Yes. Right now, it's $196. Isn't this, couldn't you call what's happening here? Isn't this just an old-fashioned pump and dump? Pump and dump. Let's pump it and dump it.
It is. And so, I try to see both sides of the story. And analysts are free to come out and say, well, I think Tesla is worth $40,000. Is it okay for folks on the internet to come out and say, I think GME is worth $400? I think the lines are blurred in terms of, who the pros are, where the actual fundamental analysis is more valid. Look, I think Wall Street is going to be seen as the smart money. There is a little bit of gambling going on. There's a little bit of hype. There's a little bit of exuberance happening here. Absolutely. Now, I think Robinhood came out. Robinhood is the platform that allows free trading, free commission, zero commission trading. I think they came out and said they're not going to allow trading in these stocks, GME and BlackBerry and a few other ones. That is definitely going to cut the small guy off at the knees in terms of being able to push the stock up. And I think that's part of the reason you're seeing things come down. So it'll be interesting to see, though, if we go to those chat boards and see what people are saying. I'm sure there are some very angry people in there. But I think it's showing, Rob, that's the strength of social media. Yeah. And I think from a broader perspective, I think it's a symptom of just a lot of money sloshing around. You and I have talked about that before.
I also wonder, though, I just went out into the newsroom and one of the people in the newsroom said, GameStop, my brother bought some of that like a couple of weeks ago. The era, 99, 2000, it reminds me of kind of like Stuart from Ameritrade. It's, where's Stuart now, right? I get it. It's great democratization of the markets and whatnot, but that's a big sell signal, isn't it? When it becomes, everybody's making money in the stock market and it's all anybody's talking about around the water cooler.
Right. The old shoe shine boy analogy where, the shoe shine boy is telling you what to buy. It's time to get out of Dodge. I'm going to have to agree with you. I think there are pockets of fluffiness out there. And I've been around, I started in the mid-'90s. And so I remember those days. And I have to say that some of this smells very, very similar to some of the things we saw back then. Now, I'm not going to paint the whole market with that picture. I think, you look at things like, Microsoft came out with earnings the other day. They were absolutely fantastic. Is Microsoft cheap? No. But is it extremely expensive? It's not. But having said that, I think you look at certain areas like this, and there is a little bit of exuberance there. Is that the sign of a top? I think it's a sign that there are areas where people have gotten a little bit excited about, and perhaps we can see a little more calm coming into those areas over time.
Yeah. The broader market is holding up very well, isn't it, Hans?
It is. I think this situation was starting to seep into markets a little bit. And to your point, I think it was starting to make folks a little bit nervous. The market's been doing well. I think, as we've mentioned before, as we've talked about before, a lot of the market is made up of equities, of big cap equities that are doing well in this kind of environment. They're providing a lot of the tools, the cloud tools and the hardware tools, the communications tools that we're using as we stay at home. There's a lot of cash around, right? We've seen savings accounts go up very sharply. We've got a lot of folks sitting at home. They're not able to go to the casino, and perhaps they're starting to take another look at the stock market. The last decade has been a decade that, is known as one that sort of left the retail trader on the sidelines. What we're seeing now, I think, is a little bit of a return of the retail trader. Is it good? Is it bad? I think it's good in general, but there will be some interesting cases like these.
Well, yeah, I think the big question mark is what sort of availability for margin should there be, right? Because then you could be into big problems for people who have no history or experience with margin accounts. That's when things, when a stock goes from $500 to $200 in an hour and a half,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Right.
It's whiplash inducing. Yeah. And so they've raised the margin requirements for trading some of these stocks as well, some of the brokerages. So they do tend to react in these ways when we do start to see a little bit of volatility out there. They can raise requirements. They've done it before to try to limit how much trouble the average person can get into. We're going to see some of that as well. But and that's a good question. GameStop was was the most heavily shorted stock out there with something like 148% of the float short. How is that possible? How can you short 148% of the outstanding shares?
Right.
Well, that's something that perhaps that's for the regulators to decide on. Is that something they should take a look at in the future? But having been in the industry and having shorted stocks in my time, I know it's a very difficult thing to regulate throughout the trading day.
You're very innovative there at Horizons ETF. You have a crypto ETF, right? Crypto,
we do.
Gold ETF. You have a gold precious metals ETF. I believe you have a cannabis product, right?
We do.
Right?
Yes.
And you're going to launch or have a psychedelics? Hans, really?
Yes, a psychedelic. We just launched our Horizon Psychedelic Stock Index ETF.
Okay, well, so what goes into something like that?
Well, okay, so this is a bit of a take on something that we launched a couple of years ago. We are very innovative. We launched the first marijuana fund that invests in North American marijuana equities. This focuses more on the psychedelic side of things. So for a lot of folks out there, you're going to recognize it as magic mushrooms. It's the psilocybin. It's a drug that has sort of somewhat hallucinogenic effects on people. And so these are companies, believe it or not, there are dozens of companies that are researching how these things can help us with, in particular with conditions like depression. So, 33% of depression.
Yeah, microdosing.
Microdosing, exactly. This isn't about, going on a trip and putting on Sgt. Pepper's and taking a trip to La La Land. This is about using small amounts to treat things like depression, because a large number of depression cases are drug resistant, as they say, treatment resistant. And so these companies are researching and combining things. There's one of them that combines MDMA, which is ecstasy, with LSD and the properties of magic mushrooms to create something that could help people with anxiety and certain mental disorders. So that's what this ETF is going to focus on, companies that are involved in that, but also some other ones. There are some bigger companies in there that are also getting into that area. And Johnson does, and AbbVie. So these are tiny ones there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. Enjoy the show. It's the best show to watch. It's every bit as interesting as anything that's on television is what's going on with the stock market these days. Thanks again.
It's fascinating, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Hans Albrecht is Vice President, Horizons ETF Canada. The last trade on GameStop. When we began our conversation, GameStop was $190 a share, and now it's $243 a share in 10 minutes, right?
And I have everything tied up in Tesla. I feel like an idiot.
Well,
come on.
You have no appetite for the volatility. You can't take the volatility. We're right back with Randall Denley here on City News.
The location is unique. There's, as you can see, it's open, and we have large windows. You can sit down and you can look outside. And this scene is not many scenes like that in Ottawa anymore, with high buildings. And we have the train station to the west of us. We have the train yards. To the south, we have Saint Laurent Shopping Center, not far from here. And OC Transpo, not far from here. And the train, the light train, again, is not far from here. You can find breakfast. The breakfast, it was 7 or 8 years ago, it was one of the best 5 locations, one of the best 5 restaurants in Ottawa, one of the best, one of the 5 best breakfasts in Ottawa. 7 or 8 years ago, it was in the Citizen. And our club sandwich is voted by customers the best in town. And the pea soup, too, is voted the best in town. We sell, we make pizza, we make Italian food, Lebanese dishes. Many customers describe it as it has the prices of the 60s, very reasonable prices. And the food, many say the best in town, not me. Many customers say that. It was a shock. It was a shock. And we went from doing well to barely doing very little. We relied heavily on the takeout, and the takeout was not that much. There was some. I hear from many customers that they are willing to come and sit inside. They're not afraid of the spread, as long as we wash our hands, sanitize everything, and wear your mask and keep the distancing. Most or all our customers are okay with that. So they are against the lockdown, They are supporting us a lot. And if it wasn't for the community loyalty, we wouldn't be here today. So I have to thank them for their support so far. It's been great.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
Every Thursday morning, we're pleased to be joined by author and columnist for Post Media, Randall Denley, and he's back with us this morning. Good morning, Randall.
Good morning, Rob.
So you have written about the Greenbelt in the past, and certainly urban boundary intensification. That's a big issue in the city of Ottawa right now. We've gone from green belts to gold belts. You don't think either are a very good idea. You've been very critical of the Greenbelt in the past. That historically, it was probably one of the worst planning decisions ever made in the history of the city. So you're not really a fan of a belt by another color, are you, Randall?
Not at all. You know, if it didn't work once, let's do it again. Maybe it'll work the second time. It's, to me, predictable what the gold belt will do, and what it is a fairly large band of land that's now protected for gravel, farming, natural uses of some sort. So they say, hey, let's call this a belt, and we're never going past this belt. When they say never, they mean it should be good to the end of the century. So the belt is like a big wall that we're putting up. No development beyond the belt. So if Ottawa were the entire universe, I guess that would work. But in reality, what we already see pre-belt is that a lot of the same developers who are building in Ottawa say, well, hard to get land. So we'll go to Carleton Place, to Arnprior, to Almont, Kempville, places where they say, hey, development, we're happy to have it.
Yeah.
When can you start building?
Yeah.
And all these places are accessible to town. So I think we're just going to push our suburbs out right outside the city. And if you're concerned about the environment and, you know, long distance driving and all that, it makes it worse. It doesn't make it better.
Yeah, and it's amazing that nobody is clued in that it was actually the result of the Greenbelt. It's not like the Greenbelt stopped the expansion of the city. It just meant people leapfrogged the Greenbelt. And thus we have Orleans, and we have Cumberland, and we have Canada, right? Yeah.
Champion the Greenbelt are also the people who lament the fact that the suburbs are outside the Greenbelt. Well, how did they get there? What was that all about? Urban sprawl. Terrible. Why is that stuff so far from the center? Well, when you take an area that, around the Greenbelt is actually 1/3 of Ottawa's urban area. So you say, well, none of that can be built on. and this is, 50s and 60s are saying that, well, it's going to go somewhere. So, big surprise, Canada and Orleans are where they are because of the Greenbelt. Were it not for that, they'd be a lot closer to the center. The city would be a lot more compact, and that would be good. But to me, it's hard to support both those ideas at once. That the Greenbelt is wonderful. What they call urban sprawl is terrible. Well, one caused the other.
Yeah, and don't you think, I just get the sense, I always thought that this opposition to any kind of development within the Greenbelt is also overblown, and any expansion of the urban boundary is just, it's just, the hyperbole is just ridiculous. I think the pandemic, and I love your opinion on this, I think that, the pandemic and people trying to, get out of the city now that remote work has become more normalized. I think this is just amplified this idea that these lines that we're drawing on maps, they almost have no meaning at all now, Randall. What do you think?
No, I think it's a big change. It's not going to stay as much as it is now, remote work. But I think it's going to be a much more significant thing in the future because a lot of people like it. It works for them.
Yeah.
And employers like it too because, well, wait, I don't need a big office building downtown. Wow, mega savings. So it works for both sides of the equation, and where it does is going to keep happening. But the city's plan doesn't really take that into account, even though we've already seen this year a lot of news coverage of people saying, well, I was living in a condo downtown because it's close to work, but, well, I'm not going to be working there anymore in that building, so now I'm going to move out someplace where I've got a home office and a bit of a backyard because I'm here all the time. It makes a big difference in people's preferences, but the city still says, well and good, but we still think you should be living in a condo building close to a transit line. Which is, why do I need a transit line? Where am I going? They're ignoring all this completely. Like, the world has changed, but it's not according to their plan. So I find what underlies a lot of urban planning these days is that it's not what you want, it's what planners want. And they're going to decide for you. So you follow the rules or not. And one of the ways they do it is by saying, well, we're just not going to allow them to build the kind of homes you want where you want. You need to live somewhere else. I mean, it's quite arrogant, really, but it's what drives all of this, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, how many stories have there been in the Citizen in the last year? We have a great real estate boom in the city of Ottawa, but it's the same story in Arnprior and Renfrew and Smiths Falls and all of these outlying communities, right?
Absolutely. And there's been coverage just in the last few days that Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver, there's been a significant exodus out of the center of the city for people who are looking for more space and a different way of living. I haven't seen any numbers on Ottawa. I don't know whether it's not happening or hasn't been studied, but there really aren't that many people living downtown now, although when you see a condo building, that's a lot of people, right? No, it's just a few hundred. So I think there's big challenges to our downtown, and that's what they should be paying a lot more attention to, but that's just not on their radar right now.
Yeah. Let's talk about another big planning issue, and that's related to the urban boundary. And when I think of all of the staff work and the studies and the committees and the public delegations that went on and all the input into the expansion of the urban boundary for this city council to just kind of blindside everybody and make the decision that it did. Not that I'm opposed to it or anything, but just it just the how it came out of nowhere. The 445 hectares for the Algonquins of Ontario and Taggart Investments. I mean, we're talking about west of Carlsbad Springs, where there could eventually be a subdivision with almost 50,000 people living there. I find it incredible. What do you think? It's incredible to me.
I've never seen anything like it, Rob. I've covered planning here for a very long time. I heard a rumor that was going to happen the day before, and I thought, yeah, it seems like the kind of thing they do, but it doesn't make any sense because there's no planning rationale for it. If I were a planner at City Hall, I'd just tear my hair out now because, as you said, they've worked years on this. And the whole premise of planning for decades has been, if you want to decide who gets to develop next, you have to do it on some rational basis. Like, what is the quality of the land? Not good agricultural land. Okay, great. Transit, it can be serviced. Pipes, it can be serviced. These are all demonstrable things that make sense. So that's why you can say to, developer A, we're going to give you permission to develop, but I'm sorry, developer B, I know you want in, but you don't meet these qualifications. So that's why we're choosing him over you. But now they're just blowing all that up. Well, none of that stuff matters. None of the stuff that the whole thing is based on matters, because the Algonquins of Ontario have aligned with another developer, and they have a big plan, you just described, to live out near Carlsbad Springs, where really, there's nothing there now, and there's no apparent demand for people to live there, but still, reconciliation. So we'll just say yes to that. So now we have basically planning based on ethnicity rather than logical planning rules. It's just not how it's supposed to work, and I think it's indefensible, really. And I understand where they're coming from, but it really doesn't make sense, and it makes a mockery out of everything that happened up to this point for this new official plan.
Okay. Great to hear from you this week, Randall Denley. As always, we'll talk again next week.
Okay, Rob, thanks a lot.
The Rob Snow Show.
Weekdays 9 to noon on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number one for local.